Chapter 125. Screech. The limousine lost its balance and skidded sideways on the road, making a sharp braking sound that echoed through the rainy night. Ah! The driver was not prepared for this sudden danger at all. He desperately turned the steering wheel and screamed unbearably. Holy Son, who was sitting in the back seat, buried his head in Noah's arms. His body was nestled in Noah's arms, and his face was full of pain. He closed his eyes and groaned bitterly. In the entire limousine, Noah was the only one who maintained his balance and calmness even as the limousine slid sideways. He hugged Elysian's son and reached out his hand through the gap leading to the front seat to grab the driver's collar. Then, Noah spun around and kicked the top of the limousine with all his might. Bang! In the muffled sound, the roof of the limousine exploded from the inside out, creating a huge hole. Whoosh! In the next second, a figure jumped out of the limousine and shot out from the hole in the roof of the limousine. Bang! In an instant, the expensive limousine crashed into a hard wall in front of him without slowing down, smashing the front of the limousine into pieces. Dong! Then, the entire limousine exploded and turned into black iron in a hot flame. It was calcined at an extremely high temperature. Screech! At this moment, the cars that had been protecting the limousine all braked and stopped. Bodyguards were run and the other Holy Son of Heaven guards rushed out of the cars, shouting meaninglessly as they rushed over. At the same time, Noah, who was holding Holy Son in one hand and the unconscious driver's collar in the other, landed steadily on the ground. His body was already wet from the rain. Looking up, Noah looked at the distant roof of the tall building where the red light had just flashed. Combined with the sniper attack here, it was not difficult to guess that the red light that flashed on the roof was the muzzle flame of the sniper rifle. In other words, the assassin who attacked Holy Son was on the roof of the building. Just as this thought rose in Noah's mind, the red light flashed again on the roof of the building. Gotcha! Almost at the same time, Noah pulled out his gun and closed his eyes. He pointed the gun in his hand in the direction of the tall building and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! In the sound of the gunshot, the black bullet cut through the sky, rubbing against the atmosphere and shooting toward the building. Along the path of the bullet, a sniper bullet was fired from the direction of the tall building. It flew straight from the direction of the bullet. The two bullets suddenly collided with each other fiercely. Clank! In the crisp sound, the scene of two bullets colliding with each other, which was impossible in reality, appeared in the air. The two bullets that collided with each other rebounded in different directions. This is a lie, right? On the top of a distant building, the girl holding an anti-tank sniper rifle clearly saw this scene through the scope. The dark red eyes of the cursed child, which was a typical phenomenon of releasing the power in the body, showed a strong shock. The building where the girl was at was more than a kilometer away from her target. To be able to snipe a target from a kilometer away, and with such accuracy, the girl's sniping ability was simply unbelievably strong. It was also because of this that the girl was highly valued by her instigator. Originally, the girl thought that she was the only person in the world who could do this. But now, the scene that appeared in front of the girl's eyes completely shattered this thought in her mind. Moreover, compared to her, the opponent's ability was obviously better. Not only did she also snipe from a kilometer away, but she also accurately neutralized the girl's sniper attack by canceling it out. This could no longer be described as 100% accuracy, but a real, godly skill. Bang! Just when the girl fell into a brief moment of shock, with the species factor of the protozoan virus in her body, the girl, who especially enhanced her vision and hearing, heard an extremely soft sound that was absolutely impossible for ordinary humans to hear. That was the sound of a gunshot. The girl's dark red pupils suddenly shrank, and a fatal sense of crisis surged in her heart, causing the girl to turn her head away without hesitation. The second bullet that came from the other side directly cut through the air, accurately hitting the scope of the sniper rifle that the young girl's eyes were still fixed on a second ago. Bang! The sniper rifle's scope in the girl's hand was directly penetrated by the bullet, and exploded into a pile of fragments. Bang! Not only that, after the bullet that was terrifying enough to match the anti-tank sniper rifle in the girl's hand exploded the scope, the force carried by the bullet directly shook the sniper rifle in the girl's hand away. Ah! The girl let out a small cry of pain. The sniper rifle in her hand was shaken away, and she was also flipped over by the impact of the force. She rolled a few times from the top of the tall building before coming to a stop. Ugh! The girl quickly got up from the ground. Ignoring her trembling hands from the shock, she picked up the sniper rifle not far away and rushed into the entrance of the tall building's roof as if she was escaping, and rushed into the stairs. Bang 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 bang. In that instant, 4 bullets with the power of the anti-tank sniper rifle pierced through the air in a sharp sonic boom, and landed heavily on the 4 positions of the path that the girl took when she rushed into the stairs, exploding 4 holes on it. If the young girl hadn't rushed to the staircase at the first moment, then the 4 bullets would have landed on the young girl's petite body. Ha! 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 At the top of the stairs, the girl holding the anti-tank sniper rifle leaned against the wall, gasping for air. Her back was already wet from the tension and crisis just now. Her crimson pupils were still filled with lingering fear, and the hand holding the anti-tank sniper rifle was still trembling. The girl looked outside the roof and saw the broken scope and the 4 holes on the ground. Her hand holding the rifle tightened. What a terrifying person. On the other side, Noah, who was holding a gun and using his excellent sensing ability to detect the position of the sniper on the roof of the tall building, fired all 6 bullets in his gun and stopped shooting. Slowly opening his eyes, Noah looked at the tall building, and his dark eyes narrowed slightly. That scent, if I'm not wrong, it must be the cursed child. Because the distance was too far, even with Noah's excellent sensing ability, he could not accurately identify the sniper's scent in the chaotic city. However, the feeling of power overflowing from the release of the protozoan virus in his body was indeed the aura of the cursed child. The sniper was a cursed child, Lord Elysium. Not far away, the group of people finally came to Noah's side. Elysium seemed to have not recovered from the panic. Her delicate body was trembling, and she tightly grasped Noah's clothes. Her face was a little pale. Noah patted Elysium's back, pressed on Elysium's slender and smooth shoulder, and gently pushed her into his arms. It's okay now, don't be afraid. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Elysium reacted and gently nodded a few times, but her movements were very weak. Obviously, because of the series of crises just now, Elysium was a little exhausted. Noah Dole. Seeing the unusually weak Elysium in Noah's arms at this moment, Elysium's eyes widened slightly, and he was somewhat agitated. Hurry up and let go of Lord Elysium. Noah didn't even look at Elysium. He felt Elysium's trembling body in his arms, and he kept patting her back, waiting for her to calm down. Elysium's roar of jealousy was still ringing, and it didn't calm down for a long time. Chapter 126. Tokyo District 1, Holy Residence, here. Noah handed a cup of freshly brewed hot tea to Holy Son of Heaven, who was sitting on the sofa. Calm down. The Holy Son of Heaven seemed to feel embarrassed for being so scared, but he still reached out his hand and took the hot tea that Noah brewed. Thank you, but I've calmed down. Thank you for worrying. With that said, Holy Son of Heaven's performance did indeed return to the sacred and inviolable appearance of the past, which made Noah feel a little relieved. Sitting down on the sofa opposite Holy Son of Heaven, Noah folded his arms, and after a moment of silence, he asked, "Is this the first time you encountered an assassination?" Holy Son of Heaven first nodded, then thought for a moment and shook her head. "I haven't been in office for long. Although it's not that I haven't encountered unexpected situations in the past, it's the first time I was directly attacked." "Is that so?" Noah felt slightly relieved. Even if she was the ruler of the Tokyo area, Holy Son of Heaven was only a 16-year-old girl. It was natural for her to be afraid of being assassinated by unknown people. Seeing that Holy Son of Heaven could calm down so quickly and return to her original state, Noah was somewhat impressed by this girl's temperament. However, he still had to say what needed to be said. "Although it's a bit inappropriate to say this directly in front of you, now is not the time to care about that kind of thing." Noah pointed at his arm with his finger, as if he had given up on something, and sighed. I have to say, Lord Holy Son of Heaven, your guards are all useless. Holding the cup full of hot tea, Holy Son of Heaven was in a state of speechlessness. Let's not talk about why our route back to the holy residence was exposed and why the snipers were ambushed there. Let's talk about the process of the ambush. Their performance was a bit incompetent. Noah made such a comment without holding back. They couldn't rush to the side of the target in the first time, couldn't organize effective countermeasures in the first time, couldn't arrange a retreat in the first time, and couldn't calm down in the first time. They looked like a panicked layman. Lord Holy Son of Heaven, I'm really curious how you can live until now. Sage Son of Heaven lowered his head and listened quietly. When Noah stopped, he smiled bitterly. In the peaceful era of the past, the task of protecting the safety of VIPs was usually the job of the police. Now, although I have a guard team, it is still an immature organization that has been in operation for less than 10 years. Naturally, it is impossible for me to be that familiar with it. What the Holy Son of Heaven meant was that as a group of guards, they were still lacking in experience in protecting Zhuoren and the others. This was mainly because in the past, as the Holy Son's bodyguards, they only existed as a wall to block the media. They didn't really have the opportunity to face assassinations and other dangers. As a result, this unbearable situation of the guards was created. Unfortunately, that was not enough to explain the problem. Putting aside the lack of experience, not only did they not reflect on the sniper incident after the incident, they even kept pushing the blame to each other. What's going on? Noah was getting a little impatient. Lord Holy Son of Heaven, you are not an idiot. I don't believe that you don't know the morals of your own guards. So, can you please not help them out of pure kindness? Sage Son of Heaven was speechless. Evidently, Noah had hit the nail on the head. However, there was a reason why Noah was so upset. After the sniper incident was resolved by Noah, Sage Son of Heaven regained his composure. The group of people rushed back to the holy residence and started a short discussion about the sniper incident. The focus of the discussion was naturally how Sage Son of Heaven's return route was known to the sniper and how he was ambushed. The plan for the Holy Son of Heaven's bodyguards was basically drawn up by Noah. It also included the details of the route. Therefore, only Noah, Sage Son of Heaven, and the other guards of the holy residence knew the route that Sage Son of Heaven would take. There was no doubt that the route had been leaked. Then, there was only one problem that could be explained. There was a traitor in the Holy Son of Heaven's bodyguards. After all, it was impossible for Sage Son of Heaven to leak the bodyguard plan that was closely related to his own safety. Therefore, it could only mean that there was a traitor in the holy residence. However, a group of brainless guards led by Zhuomeng intended to shift all the blame to Noah. The reason was that he was the one who knew the plan the best. They didn't know where to base it on. In the end, these people were naturally all blocked by Noah's understatement. If it wasn't for me, Sage Son of Heaven would have died under the first sniper bullet. Are you trying to say that I wanted to harm Sage Son of Heaven, so I leaked the bodyguard plan, and at the same time, I also tried to save the target's life from the hands of my own accomplices? This is completely meaningless. To Noah's surprise, when the rest of the guards had nothing to say, the bodyguard Zhuoren did not seem to be convinced at all. Therefore, after a period of reflection, the nature of the meeting changed completely. Bodyguard Zhuo of Heaven's bodyguards glared at Noah with resentment and stubbornness. At the same time, he used ridiculous excuses like, "You have to believe me," and "There is definitely something wrong with this guy," to convict Noah of a crime. In the end, even Sage Son of Heaven felt that bodyguard Zhuo of Heaven was being unreasonable. He took Noah back to his room. Of course, Noah only found out from bodyguard Zhuo that the room where he played the piano was Sage Son of Heaven's bedroom. Seeing that Sage Son of Heaven was silent, Noah couldn't help but rub his temples. When is the next meeting? Sage Son of Heaven was startled, then shook his head. It hasn't been decided yet. Is that so? Noah nodded calmly. The next meeting, I will redraft the bodyguard plan, but this time, I hope that only you and I know the entire plan. This. Sage Son of Heaven suddenly hesitated and said uncertainly. Do you mean that only the two of us will go to the next meeting? If he couldn't reveal the bodyguard plan to the others, it meant that he couldn't bring anyone else to the next meeting. Otherwise, the bodyguard plan would still be leaked. What's wrong? Noah looked straight at Sage Son of Heaven. Is there a problem? Sage Son of Heaven pondered for a while, then nodded heavily. I understand, President Noah and I will go to the next meeting. Only then did Noah's expression ease up a lot, and the atmosphere at the scene began to relax. President Noah. Sage Son of Heaven seemed to want to break away from the heavy topic. He smiled calmly and suddenly made a suggestion. Can I ask you to play a song for me? Play a song? Noah was stunned. Don't you know how to play the piano? I'm not very familiar with the piano. Sage Son of Heaven stood up from the sofa and walked to the front of the piano. He sat down and stroked the keys with his slender fingers. Although it's embarrassing to say this, the process of learning the piano wasn't very smooth, and my playing often wasn't very smooth either. I think I know why your playing isn't smooth. Noah inadvertently glanced at Sage Son of Heaven's hand on the piano keys, and then he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Your fingers are too hard on the keys, that will make the entire playing not smooth. With that, Noah walked behind Sage Son of Heaven, bent down, and put his hand on the back of Sage Son of Heaven's hand as if he was hugging him. Don't use too much strength, just use this amount of strength. However, Sage Son of Heaven didn't hear Noah's words. This was because when Noah bent down, Sage Son of Heaven's body stiffened, and a slight blush appeared on his face. Noah, who was completely used to being in close contact with girls, didn't notice the current situation and tilted his head in confusion. What's wrong? No. Nothing, then try according to what I said. Oh. Okay. Chapter 127. President. Xiaoshi walked into Noah's room with a pile of documents in his hands. Noah, who was sitting in front of his desk and drafting the security plan for the second meeting, looked up with a slightly helpless expression. Xiaoshi, you didn't knock or ring the doorbell, why did you just walk into my house? This is a small matter, you don't have to worry about it. Xiaoshi said lightly and ignored Noah. This is a small matter? He muttered, then walked in front of Noah and put the documents in his hands on the desk. President, during the Holy Sun sniper incident, the analysis of the sniper bullet taken from the scene is out. Hearing this, Noah gathered his spirit and flipped through the documents Xiaoshi brought. After analysis, the sniper bullet taken from the scene is a .50 caliber Browning heavy machine gun bullet. According to the president's description, the distance between the sniper's hiding spot and the Holy Sun's location is 991 meters. Seeing Noah flip through the analysis report, Xiaoshi also used his unique cold tone to summarize the main points of the analysis report. But when it came to the sniper's distance, Xiaoshi had a rare hesitation. However, President, are you sure that the sniper was really sniping from that tall building? Noah, who heard Xiaoshi's hesitation, looked up from the analysis report in his hands and looked at Xiaoshi. Is there a problem? No, there's no problem, but I'm very surprised. Xiaoshi shook his head and explained. President, do you know how high a sniper's requirements for the external environment and the sniper himself are when sniping? Noah recalled what he learned from the books and nodded. When a sniper is sniping, there are many factors that can affect the sniper's accuracy. For example, when a sniper bullet was traveling, the temperature, humidity, angle, and air pressure of the surrounding environment, as well as the arc of the bullet's trajectory, would all affect the final hit rate. If the sniper is sniped from a high place, the high-pressure wind will affect the sniper's vision, body, and even the bullet's trajectory. In addition, the sniper's heart is also beating, the sniper needs to breathe, and the muscle tissue may relax or tighten at any time, which causes the sniper's hand to shake and so on. The final conclusion is that the farther the sniper is, the more difficult it is to snipe. For example, if a sniper's sniping ability is assumed that every 100 meters the sniper's distance increases, the difficulty of hitting the target doubles. After 500 meters, every 100 meters the sniper's distance increases, the difficulty of hitting the target exponentially. Therefore, after reaching a distance of 1 kilometer, if a sniper wanted to hit his target once, it could be said that he had a godly skill. 2 hits required luck. As for 3 hits, it was definitely because the sniper was blessed by the gods. According to the president's description, the sniper who assassinated Elysian Son of Heaven's first sniper hit is obviously 100%. Without the president, Elysian Son of Heaven would definitely be dead. Although the second sniper was neutralized by the president, without the president's intervention, Elysian Son of Heaven would still be hit. Xia Shi tilted her head, and a puzzled expression appeared on her cute face. To be able to snipe from a distance of 991 meters with a 100% hit rate, President, is this sniper really an ordinary person? Noah did not answer Xia Shi's question, but after thinking for a while, he asked. Then, if the opponent is the cursed child, can it explain why the sniper's sniping ability is so strong? Personally, I think that this will make the truth even more confusing. Xia Shi opened her cute big eyes and looked straight at Noah. At the very least, I've never heard of any species that can increase a sniper's accuracy to 100%. That's true, Noah smiled bitterly, closed his eyes, pointed to his forehead with his finger, and suddenly said. Is there any news from Chiwuzhongshuan? Chiwuzhongshuan? Xia Shi almost immediately understood the meaning of Noah's words, which made her blink her beautiful big eyes. President, do you suspect that the sniper was sent by Chiwuzhongshuan? Not suspect, but sure. Noah curled his lips. After all, that old thief has already declared to Elysian Son of Heaven that he wants to rule the world and occupy all the territory of this country. Although Xia Shi did not know the specific situation, she could roughly guess what was going on, so she immediately asked very obediently. Do you want to monitor Chiwuzhongshuan? No need. Noah didn't even think about it and directly waved his hand to reject. Since that old guy dares to make such a blatant declaration, it means that he has long been prepared to be suspected. Even if we find someone to monitor him, we definitely won't be able to find out anything. Then, President. Xia Shi raised her small face and her eyes met Noah's eyes. What are you going to do? What should I do? Noah raised his hand and supported his chin. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate space and cast on a certain behind-the-scenes mastermind. The corners of his mouth slowly rose. Although the real target is not me, since we already know that it was the old thief who did it, then, if we don't give him a little reward, he really thinks that he can continue to dream. Xia Shi's face was suddenly full of confusion, but seeing that Noah seemed to have some ideas, she didn't continue to ask and helped Noah organize the documents on the desk. At this time, a pleasant ringtone came from Noah's phone on the desk. Noah picked up the phone without looking back, but when he saw the name displayed on the caller ID, a look of surprise appeared on his face. President? Xia Shi pulled on Noah's sleeve. What's wrong? Nothing. Noah patted Xia Shi's head and then picked up the phone. The next moment, a listless, very soft voice sounded from the other end of the phone. Is it Big Brother? The people in Fairy Tale all called Noah the president. Except for the people in Fairy Tale, the rest of the people would basically just call Noah by his name, at most adding a prefix or a pet name like emoji. The only one who would call Noah Big Brother was a girl he recently met. Tina. Noah called out in a probing manner. It's me, Big Brother. Tina's soft voice had a little joy. Great, Big Brother answered my call. I thought Big Brother would directly hang up or pretend not to know me. Why would I do that? Noah more or less felt a little powerless. Hey, Big Brother. Tina seemed to ignore Noah's question and said such a sentence. Next, I'm going to go shopping. And then? I'm a person. And then? I'm still a child. A child who can't resist even if some adults with special hobbies do bad things to him. A child who can't see the green light at any time, run across the road, and be run over by heavy iron vehicles. Okay. Noah weakly interrupted Tina's overly euphemistic words. You just want me to take you shopping, right? I didn't say that. Tina replied. But if Big Brother must do this, I have no choice but to comply. After all, I'm just a child. I understand. Noah sighed out loud. Tell me the meeting place. On the other end of the phone, Tina suddenly let out a satisfied hum, making Noah feel helpless, but also couldn't help but have a doting feeling. Therefore, Noah didn't see it. On the side, Xiaoshir's wise big eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. Chapter 128. On the bustling street, Noah looked at a little girl who was happily humming a tune and walking in front of him. He couldn't help but smile bitterly as he looked at the little girl who was happily humming a tune and the other little girl who was walking beside her with a calm expression. Yanzhu, Xiaoshir, what are you two doing here? He. Yanzhu held Xiaoshir's hand and walked in front of him in large strides while calling out in high spirits. I'm here to play. Isn't this good? Xiaoshir was like a little adult, looking straight ahead. It's rare that the president is free before the second meeting of the Son of Heaven, and you want to go shopping. Can't you bring us along? It's not that you can't. Noah lowered his shoulders. It's just that I'm not alone. There will be another person coming with me later. Then introduce her to us. Xiaoshir said with a, it's not a problem, look. Didn't the president say that even we have the right to make friends? That's true. Noah's mouth twitched. But I feel that it's not appropriate to use this sentence at this time. President, don't be awkward. Yanzhu twirled around in a lively manner. She was obviously in a good mood. It's more fun with more people. I won't mind. I'm not worried about whether you'll mind or not. Noah sighed softly. I'm worried that they'll mind. Now that we're here, are you going to chase us away? Xiaoshir glanced at Noah and said. We're children. You really did hear the contents of the phone call. Noah had no choice but to instruct him. Since you're here, remember, don't call me president. Don't expose our true identities. Got it. Only then did Xiaoshir show an obedient expression, but that was only because he had achieved his goal. We'll be careful. But. Yanzhu tilted her head, looking like a squirrel gnawing on a chestnut. It was very cute. If we don't call you president, then what should we call you? Well. Noah scratched his head. I don't have any special requirements. Just order whatever you want. Hearing this, Yanzhu and Xiaoshir's eyes lit up. Lord Husband. This was how Yanzhu addressed him. Rejected. Noah didn't even hesitate for a second and retorted. Master. This was what Xiaoshir had decided on. Do you want me to be treated as a scumbag? Noah almost knocked Xiaoshir on the head. Darling. This was the second time Yanzhu decided to address her. What's the difference between this and the first one? Noah raised his voice involuntarily. Dad. This was the second time Xiaoshir decided to call him that. You're determined to make me be treated as a scum, aren't you? Noah's legs went soft and he almost fell to the ground. Why can't you call me something more normal? In the end, Yanzhu and Xiaoshir seemed to be enjoying themselves. They used all sorts of names to challenge Noah's bottom line. No matter how much Noah loved these two girls, he had the urge to lock them up in a dark room for 2 days to reflect on their actions. Amidst their banter, the three of them arrived at the gathering place. At first glance, Noah saw the sleepy girl. Today, Tina didn't wear her sloppy pajamas. Instead, she wore a small dress and a small jacket. Her long silver blonde hair was neatly combed, and it shone beautifully under the sunlight. Unfortunately, Tina's adorable face still had a sleepy expression on it, as if she had just woken up. Her eyelids were blinking, and her little head was nodding, as if she had fallen asleep while standing. Seeing this, Noah face-bombed. Could it be that this girl has been playing games and watching TV all night? While he was talking to himself, Yanzhu and Xiaoshir had already arrived in front of Tina. They looked at Tina, who was nodding her little head as if she had fallen asleep. The two of them looked at each other and circled around Tina. Oh. There's someone like Rentaro who has mastered the special skill of sleeping standing up. Although I know people like this exist, this is the first time I've seen a real person like this. Won't she suddenly collapse while sleeping like this? Maybe if Yen Zhu pokes her, she'll collapse. Looking at how Yen Zhu was about to poke Tina, Noah hurriedly stepped forward to stop her. I say, it's very rude of you to treat someone you've just met. As if she only reacted to Noah's voice, the sleepy Tina slowly raised her head and rubbed her sleepy eyes. When she confirmed that it was Noah, a sleepy smile appeared on her face. Good morning, brother. The weather today is really good, it makes me feel especially energetic. Liar. Noah, Yen Zhu, and Xiaoshi all replied at the same time without any hesitation. Only then did Tina notice Yen Zhu and Xiaoshi. She stared blankly at the two of them. After a while, she was confused. Did brother kidnap 2 children on the way here? No matter how you think about it, you shouldn't have thought of this possibility first. What is your brain made of? Noah complained. Besides, I don't have the ability to kidnap children, do I? As soon as he said this, Yen Zhu and Xiaoshi immediately looked at Noah strangely. You don't know how to kidnap children? Then what about the piles of children in Fairy Tale? Let alone Yen Zhu and Xiaoshi, if Mira and Lisana were here, they would definitely say something. After all, Mira and Lisana were kidnapped by Noah when they were young and entered Fairy Tale, all in all. Noah patted Yen Zhu and Xiaoshi's little heads and pushed them forward a step. You two, introduce yourselves. I'm called Lan Yuan Yen Zhu. Yen Zhu was the first to raise her hand. Then, she suddenly turned around and hugged Noah. I'm his fiancé. Noah staggered and couldn't stand still. However, this wasn't the end. I'm called Qinsho Xiaoshi. Xiaoshi said with an icy expression. Then, he hugged Noah from the other side, forming a symmetrical position with Yen Zhu. I'm also his fiancé. Noah looked up at the sky. In a way, he had already given up on explaining. As for Tina, her mouth was slightly agape as she stared blankly at the blissful Yen Zhu, the expressionless Xiaoshi, and the speechless Noah. After a long while, a silly smile appeared on her face. Big Brother is really amazing. Is this the only conclusion you've come to? Noah didn't have the strength to retort. I'm just once again convinced of Big Brother's gentleness. Tina still appeared to be in a daze, but the smile on her face didn't seem as fake as it used to be. If you don't have a truly gentle heart, you won't be able to make so many children like Big Brother. That's right, that's right. Yen Zhu immediately nodded in agreement. Then, she jumped in front of Tina and put her hands on Tina's shoulders as if she had met a bosom friend. I've decided, they'll be my friend from now on. F.O., friend? Tina was stunned. It was as if she couldn't believe that someone would say such a thing to her. I'll be Ru Tina then. Before Tina could react, Yen Zhu patted her flat chest with a haughty expression. Let this concubine take you shopping. Then, Yen Zhu grabbed Tina, who couldn't react in time, and ran off into the distance with a giggle. Wait. Noah and Xiaoshi were startled and hurriedly chased after them. The 4 of them disappeared into the crowd together, creating a cacophony of laughter that lasted for a long time. Chapter 129. Women were able to show enthusiasm that was completely different from usual when they were shopping. Noah had heard this from other people more than once, and he had also seen it in books more than once. However, it wasn't until today that Noah realized what kind of level the so-called passion that was completely different from usual had reached. 5 hours. For a full 5 hours, with Noah as the leader, Yen Zhu, Xiaoshi, and Hina, the 3 10-year-old girls, did not rest for even a second. And in these 5 hours, they went to countless places. Clothing store. Jewelry store. Jewelry store. Supermarket. Shopping center. Game center. In these places, as long as they saw them while shopping, Yen Zhu would happily lead everyone to run, using the most physically exhausting way to play for 5 hours. In the end, the 4 of them walked through the entire commercial street. This was the incident that allowed Noah to clearly understand the true meaning of women's enthusiasm for shopping is completely different from usual. Originally, even if he went shopping with 3 little girls who were only about 10 years old, with the ability of the 3 little girls, there shouldn't be much that they could buy even if they went through the entire commercial street. Unfortunately, these 3 little girls around the age of 10 were clearly not ordinary little girls. First of all, Yenju was an initiator. Ever since she partnered with Rintaro and joined the Tentong Civilian Guard Company, Yenju has been receiving an excessive amount of pocket money from the Tentong Civilian Guard Company in the form of employment. Compared to a child, Yenju has received an excessive amount of pocket money from the company. Therefore, even if there was no way to squander as much as she wanted, Yenju's purchasing power was still enough to buy everything she liked. If the 2 poor bastards, Mugeng and Rentaro, saw Yenju squandering money like this, they would probably faint from fright. Furthermore, although Xiaoshi currently had no plans to continue using the identity of an initiator to form a police partnership with other people, he basically did not receive any pocket money from the Directorate General who treated the initiator as a tool. However, after joining Fairy Tail, Xiaoshi's net worth had become much richer than the average child. There was no other way. Xiaoshi, who was calm and collected, had sufficient knowledge and wisdom, and had an IQ of over 210, helped Noah too much. If Fairy Tail was described as a large company, and Noah was described as the chairman of this large company, then Xiaoshi was equivalent to a capable secretary who took care of the chairman's daily life. She really helped Noah solve a lot of problems. For such a meritorious person, Noah could not give Xiaoshi a sufficient salary. Therefore, Xiaoshi became a little rich woman who was richer than Yenju. As for Hina, although Noah did not know what Hina's background was, he was fully aware of Hina's big nerves. Speaking of which, someone who looked like she was about to fall asleep and casually threw a pile of expensive clothes into the river, would her nerves not be big? Therefore, Noah sincerely felt that Hina was very likely a rich young lady who escaped from some rich family, and did not care about these little things. Maybe that was the case. Just like this, as if he was the bodyguard of 3 rich kids, Noah accompanied Yenju, Xiaoshi, and Hina for almost half a day. Compared to himself, it was a rather interesting and uncomfortable day. Taking advantage of the time when the girls ran into an underwear store, Noah quietly left, and sat on a bench in a small stall opposite the store. He held a bottle of fruit juice that he bought from the stall, and took a sip while breathing heavily. Undoubtedly, I did not use much energy. Why do I still feel tired? Just as he said this, a soft and lazy voice came from beside Noah. So Big Brother was hiding in a place like this? Noah was slightly surprised, and after he recognized who it was from the voice, his shoulders slumped. How did you find me so quickly? Hina sat beside Noah without him noticing, and after hearing Noah's words, she used her finger to touch her chin and laughed foolishly. I followed Big Brother's scent to find you. Hee. Noah laughed dryly. Do you think I would believe that you have mastered this kind of special skill? That. Hina hesitated for a moment, and carefully answered. Because of love? Even you are hesitating about the answer, can you please not say it out loud like it is a matter of course? Noah felt even more tired, and raised the bottle of fruit juice in front of Hina, and asked. Are you thirsty? Do you want a sip? Have a sip. Hina stared blankly at the bottle of fruit juice that Noah raised in front of her, or more accurately, the bottle of fruit juice. After a while, her cheeks turned red, and her eyes sparkled. Indirect kiss, Noah did not clearly hear Hina's mumbling. What did you say? Nothing. Hina smiled inexplicably happily, and took the fruit juice from Noah's hand. Thank you, Big Brother. However, just as she took the fruit juice, Hina's hand seemed to have slipped, and the fruit juice in her hand slipped and fell to the ground. Pa, Hina just let out a small cry of surprise, and a hand suddenly reached out from the side, and caught the fruit juice that fell to the ground. Hina opened her sleepy eyes, and slowly looked at Noah, who reached out to catch the fruit juice with a bitter smile on his face, and blinked her eyes. Big Brother, this bottle of fruit juice seems to have escaped from my hand. Why didn't you first consider that you didn't hold it properly? Noah was almost defeated by this sleepy girl, and he could only raise the fruit juice and feed it to Hina's mouth. A look of surprise flashed across Tina's face for a split second before a blissful expression appeared on her face. She took a sip of her juice, and just as Noah was about to move the opening of the juice bottle away, she leaned forward on her own accord. More. Looking at Hina, who leaned forward with half her body, closed her eyes, and opened her mouth slightly, like a baby bird begging for food, Noah could not think of a reason to refuse. So, when Noah came back to his senses, the fruit juice in the fruit juice bottle in his hand had already been finished by Hina. Hina, who used her sleeve to casually wipe her mouth, said with a sigh. Today was a very happy day. Hearing the same words that Hina said when they first met, Noah did not know why, but he was very concerned about it. Don't say it like you didn't have a happy day. Noah could not help but say this. You can also be with your friends, right? Friends. Hina was silent, and then she shook her head. I don't have any friends. What are you talking about? Noah frowned, and then relaxed. Didn't Yenju and Xiaoshi say that they want to be your friends? Yenju and Xiaoshi? Hina looked at the store across the street, and the smile on her face began to fade. No. Noah was stunned. Yenju and Xiaoshi are good kids. At this moment, Hina's expression was a little sad. But I am a bad kid. Silence suddenly fell. Ring ring ring. At this moment, a loud ringtone came from Hina's pocket, and Hina's expression froze. She hurriedly took out her phone, hung up the phone, and jumped down from the bench. Before Noah had a chance to react, Tina had already turned around. Sorry, big brother, I have to go. After saying this, Tina ran out of the room. Wait. For some reason, Noah subconsciously called out to Hina. Hina stopped and turned around, and her face showed a very distant smile that could not be ignored. I hope to see you again, big brother. After saying this, Hina turned around and rushed into the crowd. Noah stood up and looked in the direction that Hina disappeared, and an indescribable feeling emerged in his heart. Intuition told Noah. The time to meet Hina again will come soon. Chapter 130. A Bad Child? On the way back to Fairy Tale, Noah's mind was filled with Tina's matter. Even if no one specifically reminded him, and Tina did not specifically tell Noah anything, Noah could faintly feel that something was wrong with Tina. This child seems to be someone with a lot of stories. They had only met twice, and Tina was a very strange person in all aspects, but Noah just couldn't help but feel an inexplicable sense of concern for Tina. It was not that he was curious, but Noah really wanted to know what secrets this little girl who seemed to be sleep-deprived all day long had. It was just that Noah always had a feeling. If he did not care about this mysterious little girl, he would definitely miss something. It was because of this feeling that Noah was very concerned about Tina's matter. Although it was just a feeling, Noah trusted his own feelings very much. Not to mention other things, Noah's superhuman senses, in fact, in the end, could be considered as a feeling similar to a sixth sense. Moreover, before coming to this world, Noah had inexplicably trusted his own feelings more than once, and in the end, Noah's feelings did not disappoint him. Therefore, Noah felt that it was better for him to pay a little attention to this matter. The next time we meet, I'll ask a little bit of questions. After making up his mind, Noah quickened his pace and rushed in the direction of Fairy Tale. Under Yen Zhu's suggestion, Xiaoshi seemed to want to take a look at the place where Yen Zhu worked, which was the location of Tiantong Civil Guard Company. Therefore, the two of them did not follow Noah back. After entering the outer area, Noah walked alone in the surroundings full of ruins and decayed buildings, which would make timid people tremble in fear. With clear footsteps, he rushed forward step by step. Duh. 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 The sky suddenly darkened, and thick layers of dark clouds filled the air, and small drops of rain fell. If it were an ordinary person, perhaps he would have started to look for a place to take shelter from the rain in a panic. However, Noah was still walking in the rain as if nothing had happened. He didn't care about his wet body at all. After all, unlike normal people, Noah had once spent a full 4 years in the deep mountains and forests in order to fully control crush. At that time, whether it was windy or rainy, Noah would still persevere in his training every day. Moreover, he had not been sick for a long time, so over time, as long as the rain was not too heavy, Noah would almost never deliberately avoid it. As for the problem with his clothes, he could just go back and wash it. Any problem that could be solved was not a problem. Ignoring his wet hair and clothes, Noah continued to walk in the direction of fairy tale. The sound of his footsteps had long been drowned out by the sound of the rain, and in the surroundings, only the sound of the rain continued to reverberate. However, Noah suddenly stopped in his tracks amidst the sound of the rain. He slowly lifted his head from the rain, and his dark and deep eyes gradually narrowed. Although it was very faint, Noah still heard a strange sound in the noisy sound of the rain. Whing. Whing whing whing. After this kind of sound entered Noah's ears, Noah immediately found the same sound in his memory. Previously, when the Holy Son of Heaven was ambushed, Noah had heard this sound a while ago. Shio. Just after Noah heard the sound that was like a bug flapping its wings, in the rain, a faint sharp sound broke through the air, from far to near, from soft to loud, and also into Noah's ears. Almost at the same time, Noah's gradually focused eyes flashed with a fierce light, and without hesitation, he brushed his back, pulled out his gun, turned around, swung his hand, and fiercely slammed it to the side. Quang! Amidst a loud and clear collision sound, the body of the gun that Noah swung to his side fiercely collided with a bullet that pierced through the air. Dazzling sparks were ignited and a powerful shockwave was sent out. Clang! Immediately after, the powerful bullet was directly deflected by the gun body in Noah's hand, and disappeared into the rain. In this situation, as long as one was not stupid, one would be able to understand what had happened. After the Holy Son of Heaven's ambush, this time, it was Noah's turn to be ambushed. Moreover, based on the current situation, without a doubt, the sniper was the cursed child who had ambushed the Holy Son of Heaven last time. Noah first closed his eyes and slightly sensed the surroundings. After a while, he suddenly turned his head and looked in one direction. There was a tall building that looked very old and had burn marks everywhere. It was obvious that no one lived in it, standing in the rain. Surrounding it were 2 tall buildings of the same size, forming a triangle, and supporting each other. Noah's excellent sensing ability told him that the sniper was on the roof of one of the 3 tall buildings that stood in a triangle formation. The next moment, Noah saw a red flash on the roof of the tall building, which also proved that Noah's sensing ability was accurate. That was the muzzle flare. Whoosh! In the curtain of rain, the sharp sound of something breaking through the air, from far to near, and from loud to loud, resounded once again. But this time, Noah did not use the method of meeting force with force to resolve the attack. Instead, he lowered his body, stomped his feet on the ground, and shot out like a rocket launcher, turning into a shadow. Against the rain, he shot toward the tall building. Peng dash! Almost at the moment when Noah rushed out, the place where Noah was originally at suddenly exploded, and a large hole was dug out by the anti-tank sniper bullet. In the wind pressure and rain that made people unable to open their eyes, Noah seemed to have turned into a fleeting shadow. With extremely agile movements, he narrowly avoided the obstacles in front of him at an astonishing speed, and with a whirlwind, he passed through the ruins. The tall building where the sniper was at was rapidly becoming bigger in Noah's vision. At this time, the muzzle flare on the roof of the tall building once again flashed by. Peng dash! Noah stomped his left foot heavily, causing the ground to crack. His body spun like a top as he dodged to the side at an extremely fast speed. Peng dash! The powerful sniper bullet made a sharp friction sound, and pierced through the ground there. Noah did not stop his body, and suddenly stomped his right foot, and dodged to the other side. Peng, 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 peng dash! Suddenly, a fierce sniper bullet pierced through the sky, and frequently fell in the place where Noah was a second ago. In the sound of explosion, the ground was blasted open one after another. Noah moved in a Z shape, and with a speed that could barely be seen, he nimbly dodged the incoming sniper bullets while approaching the tall building. At this time, Noah's heart gradually had a trace of astonishment. At this time, Noah's speed had already exceeded the speed that the human eye could capture. Logically, if the enemy was a sniper, he should have been anxious because he could not capture Noah's figure and position, but this sniper could accurately capture Noah's figure and shoot. This level of sniping ability, as Xiaosher said, was not something that ordinary people or even the cursed child could do. If a sniper with this level of sniping ability was always active in the dark, not to mention Noah, the life of the Holy Sun would be completely unguaranteed. I must take her down. Noah's eyes gradually became cold, and he looked up, looking at the tall building that was getting bigger and bigger in his field of vision, and the muzzle flashes of the sniper rifle constantly flashed on the roof of the building. The next moment, he suddenly stopped his footsteps and stopped. Immediately, a storm like magic burst out from Noah's body, and turned into a shock wave, blowing in all directions. Shatter dash. With a cold shout, Noah suddenly raised a hand, clenched his fist, bent his body, and heavily punched the ground. Boom! In a corner of the Tokyo area, a thunderous noise resounded throughout the sky. Chapter 131. It was only for a short moment. Only for a short moment, more than 50% of the people in the Tokyo area witnessed the light beam. It was a bright light beam that rose into the sky as if it could directly penetrate the sky. Dong! When the resplendent pillar of light disappeared, an earth-shattering sound reverberated through the skies of the entire Tokyo region. The sound reverberated through the air, causing the eardrums of many people in the Tokyo region to buzz as they cried out in pain. Rumble. Immediately, the ground shook violently, causing most of the residents in the Tokyo area who had not yet reacted to the brilliant light beam and the amazing noise, and it caused a lot of commotion. Originally, in this world, because of the primitive animals, humans lived a desperate life where they could die almost at any time. Now, the sudden strange phenomenon naturally made the people who were already exhausted to live abnormally frightened. They all thought that the end of the world was coming, and they were panicking. Fortunately, although the earthquake was violent, it did not cause casualties, and the duration was very short. In less than a minute, it stopped and returned to silence. The residents in the Tokyo area were panicking in every corner, causing a chaotic noise that could not be calmed down for a long time. At the same time, in one of the corners of District 39 outside Tokyo, gravel of moderate size fell from the air into the billowing smoke and dust, inciting a series of crashing sounds. Hoo! A gust of wind blew from a distance, taking away the smoke and dust here, exposing the scene in the smoke and dust to the air. Unfortunately, the scene exposed to the air was not so beautiful, and it could even be said to be bad. It was a huge pit with a radius of more than 500 meters, and there were countless large and small rocks rolling in it. If someone was at the scene, they could faintly see from this huge pit that among the rolling rocks, many ruins that should have stood here were completely turned into pieces of debris and mixed with the rubble in the huge pit. Plumes of smoke and dust still lingered in the huge pit, gradually dissipating with the wind. All that was left was a huge pit filled with rubble, the remains of buildings, and the remains of various items. It was as if it had been there since the beginning. If one looked carefully, one could find that in this huge messy pit, there was a small place that remained unchanged. In the center of the huge pit full of rubble, there was a place that could only accommodate one person standing. The ground there was still intact. With the intact ground that could only allow one person to stand as the center, the surrounding area was filled with rubble and debris of buildings and objects that seemed to have just collapsed. It was as if a powerful bomb had exploded, causing one to be shocked. In the only place that was still intact and could only accommodate one person, Noah remained kneeling on one knee and punching the ground with his fist. The magical power that surged around him like a white mist retracted back into his body bit by bit, returning everything to a peaceful state. Noah raised his eyes and looked around. Looking at the huge crater that was filled with rubble and the remains of buildings, he furrowed his brows slightly. Could it be that I've gone too far? Although he said this, Noah still stood up. The expression on his face did not change in the slightest because of the shocking scene that he had created. After all, this was the outer area. Except for the people living in Fairy Tale, it was basically impossible for anyone to be here. Even if it was completely destroyed, it would not cause any casualties. Secondly, after learning Crush 5 years ago, Noah would occasionally cause some damage. He was already used to seeing this kind of scene. In this kind of situation, Noah directly raised his head and cast his gaze to the front. The 3 tall buildings that should have stood there in a triangular shape had already disappeared. Under Noah's crush, they had turned into ruins and were still collapsing. Tightening the grip on the gun in his hand, Noah leaped and rushed into the sky. His body was like a phantom in the air. With a perfect parabola as a trajectory, he flew towards the ruins. He landed in front of the ruins, raised his foot, and walked into the ruins. Pieces of gravel were still falling from the broken walls, causing the crisp sound of collision to linger in the ruins of the tall buildings. Noah did not observe the surroundings. Instead, he relied on his extraordinary sensing ability to walk step by step to a position in the ruins. He had already sensed it. There, a weak presence was like a lone wolf hiding in the grass waiting for the opportunity to sneak attack. It was lurking there, and it was even faintly discernible. Some of the rapid breathing was undulating there. In more than a year, using his body and the strengthening of the gastronomic virus, Noah not only improved his physical strength, but also his vision, hearing, and so on. Because of the gastronomic virus and the species factor that the virus carried, Noah had also improved. Therefore, even if there was a short distance between them, Noah could still detect the other party's breathing and movements that were so subtle that they could not be detected. Moreover, although Noah deliberately held back when he used Crush, only destroying the environment and not targeting the sniper himself, falling from the top of a skyscraper of at least 50 floors, even if the other party was a cursed child, he should have more or less suffered some external injuries. He could tell from the other party's somewhat rapid breathing that he could not suppress. Therefore, Noah simply stopped and looked straight at the place where the sniper was, in the direction of a pile of gravel that could hide someone. "There's no point in continuing to play, come out." Noah's voice echoed clearly in the surroundings, lingering in the ruins. However, he did not know if it was Noah's illusion. Noah felt that when he spoke, the sniper hiding in the pile of gravel not far away seemed to have become more rapid, and even his breathing became chaotic. That feeling was as if the other party suddenly panicked or was shocked. Not long after, on the side of the pile of gravel, a small black shadow walked out. The crimson eyes and face that represented the power and identity of the cursed child were exposed together in Noah's eyes. In that instant, not only the owner of the crimson eyes, even Noah, who had always been calm and composed, had his pupils constricted. An uncontrollable fluctuation appeared in his eyes. The person who appeared from the pile of gravel was a little girl of about 10 years old. A 10-year-old girl wearing a one-piece dress, with a pair of crimson eyes, and holding an anti-tank sniper rifle in her hand. Of course, this was not the reason why Noah, who was good at controlling his emotions, could not help but be a little shaken. What really made Noah waver was the conspicuous long silver blonde hair that reached her shoulders and the pretty face that should be half asleep and half awake, but at the moment, it was as cold as ice. Noah personally wiped the sweat on that face during the day because the owner was tired while shopping. And the name of the owner of that face, Noah also clearly remembered it. Tina. Looking at Tina, who was also unable to maintain her calm, and her little face was full of confusion and uncertainty, Noah was in a trance for a moment, and his voice was as if it was squeezed out from his throat, and it was hoarse. "So, it's you, brother." Tina held the anti-tank sniper rifle and stepped back step by step. The expression on her face fully expressed her resistance to reality. You are the president of Fairy Tale, Noah Doria? Why? Why is it you?" Obviously, Tina did not know that the president of Fairy Tale, who she wanted to kill, was Noah. Rather, it could be said that Noah had intended to conceal his identity from the start. And just like Noah, Tina also deliberately concealed her identity. She hid her identity as the murderer of the Holy Sun sniper incident. Goo. There was a muffled sound in her throat, and Tina did not hesitate to throw away the anti-tank sniper rifle in her hand and rushed out of the ruins as if she was escaping. Wait! Noah suppressed the emotions in his heart and rushed out. Chapter 132. Tina's tiny figure dashed out from the ruins of the tall building that was surrounded by rubble of various sizes. Her crimson eyes were filled with frenzy. Why? 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 At this moment, all of the emotions in Tina's heart converged into these three words, and they continued to surge and surge. If possible, Tina hoped that this was just a huge joke. Unfortunately, a familiar voice sounded from behind her, mercilessly pulling her back to reality. Wait! Following the voice, a figure that was many times faster than Tina dashed out from the other side of the ruins. The distance between them was closing at a rate visible to the naked eye. Do you think you can escape? Tina! Tina bit her lips and dashed out of the ruins without looking back. However, if she continued like this, it was only a matter of time before she was caught. Thus, Tina abruptly waved her hand, and as if she were tossing something, she hurled 3 palm-sized spherical objects into the air. Buzz buzz buzz. The palm-sized spherical object made a sound similar to that of a bug flapping its wings. A red light flashed from its body as if it had eyes, and it flew behind Tina. That is... Noah, who saw this scene, was stunned. After hearing the sound of insects flapping their wings, he immediately understood. The strange sound that was produced before the start of both the previous and current sniping was caused by these things. In other words, during the sniping against the Holy Son of Heaven and the sniping against Noah, these spherical objects appeared at the scene. And they were definitely not too far away. After the 3 spherical objects were thrown out by Tina, they flew towards him as nimbly as humans. Most likely, Tina was controlling them in some way. When she was sniping, she was also controlling them to get closer to the target. On top of that, both times Tina had performed godly sniping from a kilometer away, Noah had a conjecture in his heart. Is it because of these things that Tina's sniping ability is so terrifying? This question could not be answered for the time being. Because, the 3 spherical objects that looked like crows pouncing on their prey drew 3 arcs and rushed in front of Noah. Just as Noah raised his gun and was about to shoot them down, the red light that depicted an eye-like pattern on the 3 spherical objects suddenly sounded like a countdown bomb. After a few DD sounds, they suddenly exploded. Bang! Scorching flames and smoke suddenly covered Noah's figure. The explosion also set off a shockwave, blowing the surrounding rubble and broken wall fragments in all directions like bullets. For a moment, Tina's footsteps paused for a moment, but after a while, she recovered and continued to run as if she was escaping. Unfortunately, this was the end of it. Following the sound of tearing through the air, a figure burst forth from within the flames behind Tina. His body was shrouded in dense flames, and he was like a flaming meteor as he hurtled through the air. In the blink of an eye, he had already brushed past Tina's side and was now directly in front of her. Tina only felt a hot wind blowing past her side, then, in a blur, Noah's figure, who was unscathed and only had some light smoke, was imprinted in her eyes. Therefore, Tina also saw it clearly. Standing in front of her, facing her, Noah, who seemed to be waiting for her to go over, had a face full of persistence and perseverance. That expression told Tina. If she didn't make it clear, Noah wouldn't let her leave. This made Tina, who wanted to escape from reality, put on an expression as if she was about to cry, and she let out a hysterical scream. Go away. While screaming as if she couldn't accept it, Tina also pulled out a sharp dagger and rushed in the direction of Noah. Noah looked at Tina's gradually approaching figure and stood there quietly, motionless. Then, Tina didn't even have the slightest thought of aiming, and she randomly stabbed the dagger in her hand at Noah. The sharp dagger flashed in an arc and swept past Noah's eyes. Immediately, the distance between the two was reduced to 0. Clang! The next moment, the dagger spun wildly, flew into the sky, and fell into the ruins full of rubble. Ugh! Tina's hand hurt, and the dagger flew out of her hand. At the same time, she also seemed to have been hit by something and took a few steps back. Gotcha! Before Tina could react, a mechanical sound was heard, and a gun was placed in front of Tina and pointed in between Tina's eyebrows. Tina's body froze on the spot. The muzzle of the gun in front of Tina was less than 5 centimeters away from Tina's eyebrows. Even if Tina was the cursed child, at such a close distance, it was impossible for her to dodge a bullet fired from a gun, even if it was a normal gun. What's more, the gun in Noah's hand was not a normal gun, but a modified revolver that was specifically enhanced for power and output. This time, she was a general. Tina stared blankly at Noah, who was standing in front of her with a modified revolver pointed at her eyebrows. Her body seemed to have lost all strength, and she slowly fell to the ground full of rubble. A sad smile appeared on her pale face. Big Brother is really amazing. This was not the first time Noah had heard Tina say these words. However, this time, this sentence caused an indescribable feeling to surge in Noah's heart. He took a deep breath and looked into Tina's eyes. Why do you want to assassinate the Holy Son of Heaven? Although there were countless questions in his heart, those questions were nothing compared to this. Because, it was precisely because of this question that Noah and Tina became enemies. Because. Tina smiled as if she had given up, but there was an indescribable bitterness in her smile. Because, this is Master's order. Master's order. Noah couldn't help but tighten his grip on the gun as he stared at Tina, who was sitting in front of him. Speaking of which, I haven't seriously introduced myself to Big Brother yet. Tina raised her head. Her expression was no longer the half-asleep half-awake look from before. Instead, it was like a bird of prey staring at its prey in the night. It was incomparably fierce. I'm an L-type initiator, a mechanized soldier of Next, ranked 98th by IP Tina Sprout. It was just a short sentence, but the information it brought to Noah was immeasurable. An L-type initiator. A mechanized soldier of Next. 98th by IP. These 3 pieces of information completely revealed Tina's identity. What Noah could find out was that Tina was not only a cursed child, but also an initiator who partnered with the police. Her IP was ranked in the top 100 by IP. As for what Next was, Noah didn't know. However, the term mechanized soldier was very clear to Noah. In other words, not only was Tina an initiator, ranked in the top 100 by IP, but she was also a mechanized soldier like Leech's Shadow Een that was modified by human scientists. While being a cursed child, Tina also had the ability of a mechanized soldier. No wonder she could squeeze into the top 100 by IP. However, this also made Noah understand. He probably wouldn't be able to get anything out of Tina. Looks like you've figured it out, Big Brother. I want to kill the holy heavenly disciple on the orders of my master, who is my partner and the one who modified me. You won't be able to find out who the mastermind is, as I don't know who gave the order to my master. I'm just a tool. Tina lowered her head as her hollow voice sounded. Big Brother, please kill me. The scene was dead silent. Looking at Tina, who lowered her head with a hollow look in her eyes, Noah's eyes became silent as he slowly pulled the trigger of the gun in his hand. Bang! The gunshot was heard for a long time. Chapter 133. Tokyo District 1, Seiju. In a conference room, the top officials in the Tokyo area gathered together to prepare for a meeting. Seiju sat at the head of the long rectangular table with his hands folded on his lap. There was no expression on his face as he opened his mouth. I believe everyone has received the report of the strange phenomenon that just happened in the Tokyo area, right? The Elysian Emperor's question exposed the main topic of this meeting. An official who was further away from the Holy Son of Heaven stood up and saluted in the direction of the Holy Son of Heaven. Lord Seiju, the panic of the people has been temporarily suppressed, but the media seems to have begun to send people to the scene of the strange phenomenon. It won't be long before some news appears in the news channels. Thank you for your hard work. Seiju first encouraged his subordinates, then asked. What about the investigation report? It's still in progress. An official quickly answered Seiju's question. According to analysis, the strange phenomenon that caused the earthquake in the entire Tokyo area seems to be emitted from the outer area. Now, the investigation team has gone to the outer area and should get the news faster than the media. Hearing this, Seiju secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and some of the uneasiness in his heart eased a lot. The strange phenomenon that happened in the Tokyo area, the bright beam of light that soared into the sky for a short moment, was witnessed by many people. What kind of phenomenon is that? If it is not clear, in this turbulent era, it will definitely cause a lot of panic. In fact, after the strange phenomenon occurred, followed by a moderate earthquake in the Tokyo area, many places were shouting, "The end of the world." If such a sound is not stopped in time, it will definitely cause great panic, and the entire Tokyo area will be turbulent. Seiju was actually a little uneasy. After all, such a phenomenon can't be said to not be the end of the world, or the precursor of the end of the Tokyo area. Therefore, the truth of the phenomenon must be found as soon as possible. If it is a simple natural phenomenon, then it will be leaked to calm the hearts of the residents in the Tokyo area. If it is a precursor of a phenomenon that will lead to a disaster, then it must be investigated as soon as possible to find the right medicine and discuss the countermeasures as soon as possible. At least, the media can't report the news about this phenomenon first, otherwise, it will really cause a large-scale panic. Click. Outside the door of the conference room, a woman with glasses and an intellectual look suddenly opened the door of the conference room, attracting the attention of the officials in the entire conference room. Under the gaze of the officials in the conference room, the secretary came to Seiju's side, took out a vibrating phone, and said to Seiju. "Lord Seiju, there is a phone call." "Call?" Seiju didn't even turn his head. "Wait until after the meeting." "But," the secretary said hesitantly. "This is President Noah's phone." "President Noah?" Sage Son of Heaven was slightly stunned. Then, he couldn't help but pick up the phone. "Hello." There was a moment of oppressive silence on the other end of the phone. Then, Noah's voice sounded. "Do you know where Chiwu Zhongshuan lives?" Seiju's body. "Seiju's, lords, Seiju's, that. President Chiwu should still be in the hotel, is that so?" Noah said indifferently. His words made Holy Sun Tianzi completely stunned. "Get the car ready. The second meeting is about to begin." In the limousine heading to the hotel, the Holy Son of Heaven, who was sitting in the seat, looked at Noah with a rare uneasy expression. Noah, who was sitting opposite Xing Tianzi, was looking at the scenery outside the window. Undoubtedly, there was nothing wrong with him, but he was emitting an aura that even Xing Tianzi could sense, which made the temperature in the car seem to have dropped a lot. The Sage Son of Heaven could only clench his fists tightly and ask anxiously. "Excuse me, what happened?" During the meeting, it was impossible for the Sage Son of Heaven to follow Noah's instructions and prepare a car for the second meeting with Chiwu Zhongshuan. Putting aside Chiwu Zhongshuan's problem, the issue that needed to be discussed in the meeting that had just been held could not be put aside until it was resolved. However, after the Sage Son of Heaven told Noah about it, Noah told him not to worry about it. Although the Sage Son of Heaven didn't know what was going on, he surprisingly chose to trust Noah's words. Thus, the Sage Son of Heaven followed Noah's instructions and put the meeting on hold. He contacted Chiwu Zhongshuan urgently and prepared for the second meeting. After the car was prepared, Noah appeared in front of the Elysian Emperor and acted like this. In addition, Noah suddenly proposed a second meeting and didn't even give the Elysian Emperor the protection plan. All these abnormalities made it impossible for the Elysian Emperor to not notice. After the Sage Son of Heaven's uneasy voice sounded for a while, Noah, who was looking at the scenery outside the window, turned around and looked at the Sage Son of Heaven. Not only did he not answer the Sage Son of Heaven's question, but he also asked such a question. "What is next?" "Next?" The Sage Son of Heaven was obviously surprised. He hesitated for a moment before replying. "You already know about the existence of the New Human Creation Project, right?" Noah nodded silently. It was something the Sage Son of Heaven told him. It was impossible for him not to remember it. In fact, in addition to the New Human Creation Project in Japan, there are also similar mechanized soldiers projects in the UA, Germany, and Australia. The Sage Son of Heaven explained. Next is the American Mechanization Program branch's mechanization program with Ayn Rand as the highest leader. Ayn Rand. Noah lowered his head and repeated the name as if he wanted to remember it. After a while, he raised his head and looked at the Sage Son of Heaven. Then, can the mechanized soldiers also modify the cursed child? Modify the cursed child? This time, the Sage Son of Heaven was really surprised and immediately shook his head. No, I only heard that the mechanized soldiers were modified from people who were about to lose their lives, but how can the cursed child be modified? The Sage Son of Heaven's words were not difficult to understand. The mechanized soldiers were all modified from people who were about to lose their lives. If they were healthy, if they were to be modified, then it would be a crime. However, the cursed child had the virus of the protozoan in their bodies. Not only did they have amazing strength, they also had a terrifying regenerative ability. Basically, it was impossible for them to cause any injuries or illnesses. Then, if the cursed child were to be modified into a mechanized soldier, what kind of situation would it be? It was very simple. It was to directly press the cursed child into the operating table while they were still alive. Moreover, in order to complete the modification, they had to use a titanium scalpel to prevent the cursed child's body from regenerating. The success rate of the mechanized soldier's modification is already very low. If the cursed child is modified with titanium alloy, the success rate will be even lower after preventing them from regenerating. The Sage Son of Heaven said with a serious face. In that case, I really can't imagine how many healthy, cursed children would die on the operating table. Hearing this, a cold light flashed in Noah's eyes, and there was even a hint of viciousness. Ding! The clear sound of the elevator rang out, and the doors of the elevator slowly opened. Noah and the Sage Son of Heaven walked out of the elevator and looked at the sofa in front of them at the same time. There, Chiwu Zhongshuan straightened his back, and there were 4 guards in black suits beside him, as if they had been waiting for a long time. Their eyes met with Noah's and the Sage Son's eyes. Chapter 134. I'm surprised. Chiwu Zhongshuan, who was surrounded by 4 guards, didn't wait for Noah and the Elysian son to come over. He stroked his beard and put his hands behind his back as he spoke these words. I didn't know that the Xingzi of Yodo has the habit of waking people up late at night for a meeting. Hearing this, Xingzi's face was calm, as if he had already expected Chiwu Zhongshuan to ask such a question. He nodded slightly apologetically. I'm very sorry. The decision was made in haste. Please forgive me for my rudeness, President Chiwu. Of course, I won't pursue such a small matter. Although he said so, Chiwu Zhongshuan's face was full of displeasure, showing his mood at this time. Then, Xingzi, can we start the meeting between us? Xingzi nodded and was about to step forward, but a hand suddenly pressed on Xingzi's shoulder, stopping him. Xingzi was stunned, and even Chiwu Zhongshuan frowned. Under the gaze of the 2 supreme rulers of Yodo and Osaka, Noah, who was holding Xingzi's shoulder, stared at Chiwu Zhongshuan until Chiwu Zhongshuan's face became a little ugly. Then Noah spoke indifferently. Xingzi, how about leaving this meeting to me? President Noah? Xingzi was stunned, and he couldn't react for a long time. Obviously, he was extremely shocked that Noah would say such a thing. You? Chiwu Zhongshuan was also stunned for a moment, but after he reacted, he immediately laughed out loud, but there was a hint of anger in his voice. Who are you? What qualifications do you have to stand up and talk to me? Identity? Noah did not say anything. He just cast a sarcastic look at Chiwu Zhongshuan for less than a second, which reminded Chiwu Zhongshuan of the last time when they talked about identity. Chiwu Zhongshuan's face darkened even more. Chiwu Zhongshuan did not say anything. In this regard, Noah didn't say anything. While Xingzi was still in a daze, he stepped forward and stared at Chiwu Zhongshuan. I won't beat around the bush, Chiwu Zhongshuan. The mastermind behind the assassination of Xingzi is you, right? The air suddenly froze. Saint Child looked at Noah in disbelief. He had not expected Noah to say something like that in front of Qi Wu Zhongshuan. Qi Wu Zhongshuan's dignified face had long stiffened. The muscles on his face kept twitching. Obviously, he was caught off guard by Noah. In fact, as long as one was not a fool, one could more or less guess that the mastermind behind the assassination of the Holy Son of Heaven was Qi Wu Zhongshuan, who wanted to occupy this country and become the overlord of the world. However, it would be foolish to question him directly in front of the ruler of a region without any evidence. The 4 guards around Qi Wu Zhongshuan were already looking at Noah with disdain. Even the Holy Son of Heaven was a little anxious. Only Qi Wu Zhongshuan, who had fully experienced Noah's strength in the last meeting, could not help but feel a chill in his heart. While secretly feeling that something was wrong, he glared at Noah. "Officer, are you slandering me?" "Slandering?" Noah approached Qi Wu Zhongshuan step by step. Undoubtedly, his pair of dark eyes were very calm, but Qi Wu Zhongshuan felt unusually oppressed and could not help but take a step back. "You know best whether it's slander or not, don't you?" "You." The muscles on Qi Wu Zhongshuan's face twitched again. Around Qi Wu Zhongshuan, the 4 guards in black suits had already pulled out their guns, aimed at Noah, and shouted coldly in unison. "Stop. If you come any closer, we'll shoot you for attempting to harm the regional president." Unfortunately, Noah did not even look at them. He still stared at Qi Wu Zhongshuan and approached step by step. "President Noah." The poor Holy Son of Heaven did not expect things to develop to this point. He stood there anxiously. The 4 guards of Qi Wu Zhongshuan had anger and murderous intent in their eyes, and they directly pulled the triggers of their guns. Bang! In the simultaneous gunshots, 4 bullets pierced through the air and violently shot toward Noah, who was gradually approaching. However, almost at the same time, a faint sound broke through the air from Noah's body. Then, Noah's figure became somewhat illusory. The 4 bullets pierced through Noah's illusory figure. No. It was not just pierced. The bullets that penetrated Noah's illusory body seemed to be like a mortar that blew away the fog, directly hitting the figure in front of it. That was, impressively, an afterimage. Whoosh! Immediately, a gust of wind blew past the 4 guards who were shooting with their guns. The next moment, it turned into a figure and appeared in front of Qi Wu Zhongshuan. Qi Wu Zhongshuan was suddenly shocked and wanted to retreat, but the tie in front of him was grabbed by a hand and pulled forward. Coo! Qi Wu Zhongshuan suddenly made a depressed sound, and his body was involuntarily pulled forward by the tie. Grand President. The 4 guards were shocked and screamed aloud. They put their guns in front of Qi Wu Zhongshuan, who was protected in the middle by them. Seeing Qi Wu Zhongshuan being pulled up by his tie, they did not dare to act rashly and were a little flustered. "Qi Wu Zhongshuan, I'll make it clear to you. Don't expect me to show you any evidence." Noah directly grabbed Qi Wu Zhongshuan's tie, pulled him up, and pulled him in front of him, and said sarcastically, "Now that I have confirmed that you are the mastermind behind this, just like what I said last time, even if I kill you now, I will still live well. Why should I look for any evidence? You. I." Qi Wu Zhongshuan's face turned purple and he was lifted up by Noah. His toes began to leave the ground. He wanted to say something, but because of suffocation, he could only squeeze out a painful sound. This made the 4 guards even more anxious. They roared to warn and bluff, which made Noah, who was already in a bad mood, even more impatient. "Don't say that I didn't give you a chance." Noah pulled Qi Wu Zhongshuan's tie with great force and threw him to the side. Qi Wu Zhongshuan's body completely lost balance and fell to the side with Noah's action. With a bang, he hit the ground and screamed out in pain. "What I like most is to use the same means to repay people who play tricks in front of me." Noah looked disdainfully at Qi Wu Zhongshuan, who fell to the ground, and said in a condescending tone, "Since you want to assassinate the Holy Son of Heaven, I will do the same to you. So, from now on, I will give you an hour to escape. After an hour, I will catch up with you. If you can escape from the Tokyo area, I will stop. If you can't. Noah's eyes flashed with a cold light that made Chiwu Zhongshuan's heart palpitate. Then your daydream of dominating the world will be crushed in my hands. After saying that, Noah turned around. Remember, you only have an hour. Chiwu Zhongshuan, who had always been unscrupulous, could not help but feel fear when he heard Noah's strong declaration and the cold aura around him. He screamed. Go. Take me away. The 4 guards immediately stepped forward and hurriedly helped Chiwu Zhongshuan up. They rushed into the elevator as if they were escaping. President Noah. At this time, the Holy Son of Heaven, who had been caught off guard and could not find a chance to interrupt, ran to Noah's side in a panic for the first time. What are you doing? Enough. Noah raised his hand and blocked the Holy Son of Heaven. His eyes looked through the glass window in front of him at the night view outside. Just leave everything to me, if you still trust me. The Holy Son of Heaven opened his mouth, but in the end, he did not say anything and nodded with a worried face. The night was still going on, and it was destined to be quite long. Especially tonight. Chapter 135. Whoosh. On the dark road, a black limousine was driving at a speed of 150 kilometers per hour against the strong wind pressure as if its life depended on it. Bastard. Inside the limousine, Chiwu Zhongshuan gripped the door handle tightly and kept exerting force on it. The veins on his arms had already popped out, but he didn't care at all. He was still shouting with resentment on his face. A mere policeman dares, bastard. In the car, except for the driver, the other 3 guards held their guns tightly while fearfully enduring Chiwu Zhongshuan's angry and unwilling roar. Their hearts were beating violently. However, there was still a guard who chose to speak his mind. President, why should we be afraid of that policeman? We should have just shot him, shouldn't we? For these guards, who had only seen Noah once today, it was too embarrassing that Chiwu Zhongshuan, the ruler of the Osaka area, was so afraid of a policeman. Although these guards had seen Noah once in the hotel, they had not been able to stop Noah from approaching Chiwu Zhongshuan. At most, they felt that Noah did have some ability, but it was not enough to threaten the ruler of a region. Therefore, these guards really couldn't understand why Chiwu Zhongshuan ran away in such a panic. Such words naturally ignited the anger of Chiwu Zhongshuan, who was already very angry. Immediately, Chiwu Zhongshuan roared wildly. What do you know? The guards were shocked, but Chiwu Zhongshuan ignored them. He lowered his head, clenched his hands, and his face was pale. If possible, why wouldn't Chiwu Zhongshuan want to shoot Noah directly? Although Chiwu Zhongshuan coveted the power of the cursed child and the bullets that could kill the Scorpio in the fairy tale created by Noah, for Chiwu Zhongshuan, who was as ambitious as he was arrogant, Noah had offended him, and it was enough for him to die. But that was only if Chiwu Zhongshuan could kill Noah. Just like what Noah said, in today's world, a powerful police partner was enough to affect the military balance of the entire world. Chiwu Zhongshuan didn't know how powerful Noah was. However, Noah, who possessed the bullet, even if he wasn't very strong, his influence was still extraordinarily large. At the very least, Chiwu Zhongshuan felt that with his own strength, even if he gathered all the capable people under him, they would not be able to block a bullet that was powerful enough to kill a stage V protozoan. In addition, Noah had one-sided suppressed Chiwu Zhongshuan several times, and Chiwu Zhongshuan had sensed a fatal danger from Noah. Chiwu Zhongshuan could not guarantee that he could do anything to Noah. If he chose to fight against Noah, he didn't have a 100% chance of winning. It was even possible that he would fail miserably. Furthermore, the other party had all kinds of advantages and didn't need to worry about Chiwu Zhongshuan's identity. They could kill him at any time. So, other than running away, what else could Chiwu Zhongshuan do? In the past, although Chiwu Zhongshuan knew that a powerful police could affect the military balance of the entire world, knowing was one thing. Whether or not he could experience it was another. Now, this feeling of being powerless in the face of a powerful opponent made Chiwu Zhongshuan realize that in today's world, powerful strength was everything. As for identity, it was the same as what Noah had said. Shi Wuzhongshuan, who was adhering to these things, would either go back to the Osaka area and hide there for the rest of his life, or come out and dream of dominating the world. In the end, he would still have to walk towards failure with his identity. Hee hee. Shi Wuzhongshuan's face pulled up into an extremely ugly smile. Noah Dole, you are indeed not an ordinary person. No wonder even the celestial chrysanthemum prime minister couldn't do anything to you. Consider it my loss this time, but you have also taught me the importance of true power. Therefore, I must make all the powerful people my claws and teeth. Shi Wuzhongshuan already had this idea. However, after this incident, Shi Wuzhongshuan was even more determined to have this idea. If Shi Wuzhongshuan could return to the Osaka area alive, he would definitely implement this idea firmly, and then recruit many capable people to work for him. At that time, Shi Wuzhongshuan, who focused on recruiting powerful people, might be able to further realize his ambition with the help of many powerful people under his command. Of course, that was if Shi Wuzhongshuan could return alive, eh? The driver, who was stepping on the accelerator, inadvertently caught a glimpse of the top of a building in front of him. Then, his eyes widened and he shouted in disbelief. What is that? The sudden shout made the already tense atmosphere in the car explode. It also made Shi Wuzhongshuan stick his head out and shout. What's wrong? The driver could no longer look at the road and pointed at the top of a building in front of him. There. There. Hearing this, everyone in the car, including Shi Wuzhongshuan, turned their eyes to the top of the building. The limousine, which was speeding at 150 kilometers per hour, was getting closer and closer to the building. Not long after, in the limousine, Shi Wuzhongshuan's eyes widened. He saw that at the top of the building, which was getting closer and closer, a figure stood on the edge. With the dark night sky as the background, the figure stood against the wind. The coat on his body fluttered in the wind. He held a gun in his hand. Even though there was a short distance between them, his cold eyes seemed to be able to be seen clearly. He looked at Shi Wuzhongshuan's eyes. Impossible. Impossible. The guards in the car were horrified, and Shi Wuzhongshuan hurriedly looked at the time displayed on his watch. It had indeed been an hour since they left the hotel. However, only about 10 minutes had passed from Noah's 1-hour limit. The limousine was moving at 150 kilometers per hour. That was to say, after an hour, Shi Wuzhongshuan was at least 150 kilometers away from the hotel. In just 10 minutes, a person 150 kilometers away appeared in front of them? How is this possible? Shi Wuzhongshuan's roar rang out in the car. Shoot! Shoot! Standing on the high ground against the wind, Noah looked down at the approaching car in the distance with a cold expression on his face. Mr. Ruler of Osaka, our game has begun. As soon as he finished speaking, the windows of the speeding car were suddenly opened. Several guns poked out and aimed at Noah's direction. Without any pause, the muzzles immediately flashed with muzzle flashes. Bang, 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 bang. Loud and chaotic gunshots reverberated in the night sky. Bullets with lethal power also cut through the air and fell on Noah's body like raindrops amidst the sharp sonic booms. Dang, 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 dang. Unfortunately, when the rain of bullets shrouded Noah like a storm fell on Noah's body, a black curtain composed of shadows suddenly appeared in front of Noah. While stirring up fierce sparks and loud collisions, all the bullets were blocked and bounced off one by one. Shi Wuzhongshuan, who saw this scene with his own eyes, almost stared out. After he reacted, he hurriedly shouted to the driver. Quick! Overtake them. The driver hurriedly stepped on the accelerator and accelerated the car. It overtook the building where Noah was and turned into another road in the blink of an eye. Noah immediately stopped dancing crazily, blocking the incoming bullets with his gun. He stared at the vehicle that was gradually getting smaller in his field of vision. He crouched down and in the next second, he dashed out of the vehicle. Of course, even Noah could not really fly. However, Noah used the buildings on both sides of the road as stepping stones. Like a meteor jumping between the buildings, he turned into a stream of light and chased in the direction of the car. Chapter 136. On both sides of the vast and long road, the black shadow turned into a stream of light. Like a meteor jumping, it used the roofs of the buildings as stepping stones and leaped violently, chasing in the direction of a limousine that was speeding towards the front of the road. Monster! Monster! Chiwu Zhongshuan, who saw this scene from the rearview mirror in the car, couldn't help but be frightened and murmured inaudibly. It wasn't that Chiwu Zhongshuan had never heard of people who could jump between buildings. For example, it was easy for the cursed child, who had strong physical abilities with protozoan virus in his body, to do this step. However, for a human being, it was almost impossible to accomplish with his own strength. Could it be that guy is a mechanized soldier born under the new human creation plan? Chiwu Zhongshuan could only think of this possibility. In addition to the cursed child, only a mechanized soldier with a machine transplanted in his body and transformed into the new human creation plan could do this. Damn the holy son of heaven, he actually hid such a trump card in the Yodo area. Chiwu Zhongshuan spat out resentful words, then roared at the guards in the car. What are you doing? Shoot for me. The guards, who fell into a state of absent-mindedness because of the scene that exceeded common sense, only then did they wake up. They quickly raised the guns in their hands through the car window and madly fired at the meteor-like figure that was jumping between buildings and approaching at a very fast speed. Bang 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 bang. Like raindrops, the bullet screen once again poured out, shrouding the figure that was leaping between the buildings behind. Clang 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 clang. Unfortunately, the barrage of bullets either missed its target and landed in the building where Noah was just a second ago, or was directly blocked by the gun in Noah's hand as he leaped forward. All of the bullets were neutralized. Whoosh! Braving the violent wind, Noah leaped out with a sharp air-braking noise and chased after the speeding limousine. He stared at the black limousine on the main road. His eyes kept sizing up the limousine and finally landed on the tires of the limousine. Gotcha! Only Noah could hear the mechanical gunshots. Noah raised the gun in his hand, aimed at the speeding limousine, and suddenly pulled the trigger. Bang! A gunshot that was louder than any gunshot from the limousine echoed in the night sky. Whoosh! The powerful anti-tank bullet turned into a sharp sound of friction with the atmosphere and fell heavily on the wheels of the limousine. Bang! Suddenly, the fragile tires of the limousine exploded as if they were blown up by a small bomb. Gee! After losing a tire, the limousine immediately spun like a spinning top. Amidst the continuous screams inside, it slid forward. Immediately, a guardrail appeared in front of the gliding limousine. Bang! In the fierce collision that made people close their eyes, the limousine crashed into the guardrail, bounced off, and smashed into the ground not far away. It rubbed against the ground for nearly 100 meters before stopping. Dong! With a loud bang, the gorgeous limousine exploded magnificently and was completely covered by a thick and raging fire. If there were still people in the limousine, they would definitely die in such a big disaster. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the 4 guards jumped out of the limousine with Chiwu Zhongshuan. After rolling on the ground for a few times, they stabilized their bodies and groaned bitterly. Goo! Chiwu Zhongshuan only felt dizzy. There was no place in his body that did not hurt. Even the air in his lungs was squeezed out. Lying on the ground, he could no longer move. Grand President. Around him, the 4 well-trained guards were fine. They got up from the ground one by one. Just as they were about to gather around Chiwu Zhongshuan, an indifferent voice sounded behind them. Is this the end? The 4 guards were all frozen on the spot. Naturally, Chiwu Zhongshuan also heard the voice. He raised his head with difficulty and looked forward. In front of the raging fire caused by the explosion of the limousine, to Chiwu Zhongshuan at this time, there was no doubt that the figure of the Grim Reaper was there. His back was straight, and he held a spear as he walked over step by step. At this moment, Chiwu Zhongshuan deeply understood what the deepest fear was. Stop, stop him! Chiwu Zhongshuan shouted without caring about his image. Quick! Stop him! Just as Chiwu Zhongshuan's hysterical voice fell, the 4 guards hurriedly raised their guns and pointed them at Noah. Bang 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 bang. However, before the 4 guards had time to pull the trigger, 4 gunshots rang out. Immediately after, 4 powerful bullets landed heavily on the guns in the hands of the 4 guards. Clang 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 clang. As the guards exclaimed in unison, the guns in their hands were knocked out of their hands. Get out of the way. The gun in Noah's hand was smoking as he said coldly to the 4 guards. This is none of your business. Ha! Unfortunately, not only did the 4 guards ignore Noah's warning, but they also seemed to have gone mad. They roared, pulled out their daggers and batons, and rushed toward Noah. From the corner of his eyes, Noah glanced at the guards who were charging at him from all directions. He slowly gripped the gun that was emitting smoke from the muzzle and closed his eyes slightly. A moment later, his eyes suddenly opened and the gun in his hand turned into a black shadow, bringing with it an oppressive force that lifted the atmosphere. Like a small black wind will, with Noah as the center, it ruthlessly swung towards the surroundings. Clang 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 clang. Wherever the black wind will passed, sparks flew. The daggers and batons in the hands of the guards were directly shaken out of their hands by the powerful force contained in the wind wheel, and the web between their thumb and forefinger was also shaken to the point of cracking. Immediately, Noah's feet that were spinning suddenly stopped, and the black wind wheel dissipated. Looking up, Noah looked at the guards who were less than half a meter away from him, and his eyes turned cold. His body turned into an afterimage, and rushed in front of the 4 guards. Bang 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 bang. Following 4 muffled sounds, the 4 guards cried out in succession. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and flew backwards. They heavily smashed into the ground around them. After struggling for a while, they fell weakly to the ground. Chiwu Zhongshuan sucked in a breath of cold air. These 4 guards were very capable guards that Chiwu Zhongshuan had spent a lot of effort to recruit. If these 4 guards were active as police officers, as long as there was a passable initiator, they would definitely be able to get into the top 300 IP rankings. These 4 guards would not necessarily lose to the cursed child, who was not very strong. Now, in the blink of an eye, they were defeated in the hands of the young man in front of him. How could Chiwu Zhongshuan not be shocked? You, looking at Noah standing in the middle of the 4 guards who had fallen to the ground, Chiwu Zhongshuan's body could not help but move back. Noah turned his head and looked at Chiwu Zhongshuan who was moving back on the ground. His eyes were like an ancient well, as if he had done something insignificant. He lifted his feet, walked forward, and came in front of Chiwu Zhongshuan. Noah raised his gun and pointed it at the head of Chiwu Zhongshuan, who was sitting on the ground, and spoke without mercy. You can't escape from my hands. Chiwu Zhongshuan's body froze there, and he no longer moved back. Looking at the black muzzle pointing at his head, the fear in his heart was even stronger. After all, as long as the owner of the gun gently pulled the trigger, the fatal bullet that was comparable to an anti-tank sniper rifle would break Chiwu Zhongshuan's head and make Chiwu Zhongshuan's head explode like a watermelon. At that time, the dignified ruler of the Osaka region would not be able to leave behind a glorious history, only a notorious reputation for oppressing the people, and disappear from the stage of history without any achievements. Chapter 137. Crackle. Crackle. The raging fire continued to burn on the charcoal-like scrap iron of the limousine, releasing a scorching red light that illuminated the dark night sky. In front of the fire, Noah, who was holding a gun, pointed it at himself, and Chiwu Zhongshuan, who was sitting on the ground, looked at each other. For a long time, they did not speak. Looking at Noah's emotionless eyes, Chiwu Zhongshuan had no doubt that Noah would pull the trigger at any time. Calm down. I must calm down. Chiwu Zhongshuan could only remind himself in his heart. He forced himself to calm down, looked at Noah, and clenched his teeth. What will it take for you to let me go? Beg for mercy? Noah seemed to be indifferent as he sneered. That doesn't seem like something you would do, President Chiwu. At the very least, I don't have that kind of boring self-esteem where I have to protect my pride even if I die. Chiwu Zhongshuan stared at Noah, as if he would pull the trigger if he looked away. I still have ambitions that I want to achieve no matter what. I don't want to die like this. So, tell me, what will it take for you to let me go? You should be glad that I don't have a heart full of righteousness like a hero. Otherwise, for the sake of the people in Osaka who have been oppressed by you, I would have killed you here, Noah said calmly, but his eyes were cold. Before that, I want to ask you a question. Chiwu Zhongshuan secretly sighed in relief and nodded. Go ahead. You were the one behind the assassination of Sage Tianzi, right? Noah looked at Chiwu Zhongshuan coldly. The person you asked was Ayn Rand, right? I did issue such a request. Chiwu Zhongshuan hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he chose not to hide it and told the truth. However, I only issued a request to a foreign partner. I don't know who they gave the order to or what kind of people they sent to carry it out. Oh. Noah smiled sarcastically. You have a relationship with a foreign partner. It seems that you are not just a daydream. Noah did not doubt the authenticity of Chiwu Zhongshuan's words. After all, such an assassination request would usually go through several people before it was finally passed on to the executor. Only in this way could the identity of the mastermind behind the scenes be perfectly concealed. Chiwu Zhongshuan had only sent out a request to a foreign country. Then, his collaborator had accepted the request and sent it to Ayn Rand. Only then did Ayn Rand send Tina to the Tokyo area to carry out the mission. With so many complicated steps, if they only caught the assassin, it would be even more difficult to find the mastermind behind all this. Chiwu Zhongshuan's luck was really bad. If it was someone else, he wouldn't be able to do anything even if he suspected that Chiwu Zhongshuan was the mastermind behind the assassination of the Elysian prince. Because he had no evidence at all. Therefore, even the Elysian child himself could not find a way to deal with Chiwu Zhongshuan. However, Chiwu Zhongshuan just had to meet Noah, who was rude and unreasonable, who did not play by the rules, and who possessed unparalleled power. This caused Chiwu Zhongshuan's meticulous deployment to be disrupted, and he was the one who was defeated. I don't care who you sent the request to, and I don't care about your unrealistic ambitions. Noah looked at Chiwu Zhongshuan, and his body began to release an aura that caused the surrounding temperature to drop. However, because of the matter of the assassin who helped you carry out the mission, I am very unhappy now, and I am even more unhappy with the guy who sent her here directly. Hearing these words, Chiwu Zhongshuan was startled at first, and then he thought of something. He looked at Noah in astonishment, and his voice was full of uncertainty. You mean, you want me to help you deal with Ayn Rand? I don't want you to help me. Noah looked at Chiwu Zhongshuan condescendingly. But, if you want to live, you can only exchange his life for yours. Chiwu Zhongshuan trembled all over and suddenly came to a realization. An incredible thought rose in his mind. Could it be that this person did not care about his life or death at all, and was not in the mood to deal with him? The reason why he forced him to this point and did not kill him directly was to let him deal with Ayn Rand? From the beginning, he did not enter his sight and was regarded as an enemy by him? To him, this pursuit was just a means to achieve his goal. Thinking of this, Chiwu Zhongshuan had an absolutely uncontrollable fear of Noah. Not only did he have wisdom comparable to the highest level of politicians, but he also had incomparable power, and his methods were so brilliant. What a terrifying person. Such a person was definitely not an enemy. At this moment, Chiwu Zhongshuan's fear and scruples for Noah rose to the peak. He gritted his teeth and nodded heavily. I can promise you, but you have to give me some time. Ayn Rand was the highest person in charge of the next in the United States. Her brain could even be ranked in the top 3 in the world. Otherwise, she would not have the ability to transform mechanized soldiers. Such a person, although her status was not high, could play a great role in a country. Even if Chiwu Zhongshuan wanted to deal with such a person, he could not do it openly. He could only do it behind the scenes, just like when he assassinated the Son of Heaven. Noah, who understood this, did not say anything. His heart, which had been suppressed because of Tina's appearance, slowly calmed down a lot. In this way, he could more or less get some interest for those cursed children who died on the operating table and were reduced to experimental subjects. In the future, no other cursed children would be killed by Ayn Rand. I hope President Chiwu can get rid of this eyesore as soon as possible. Noah put away the gun in his hand and turned around. I believe that today's experience will also make President Chiwu believe that if I want to find you, even if you hide in the Osaka area, I can still go to you. After leaving this sentence, Noah took a few steps forward and bent down. His figure turned into a stream of light and soared into the sky like a meteor, streaking across the sky and landing in another direction. Chiwu Zhongshuan still sat on the ground, looking around at the guards lying on the ground and the still burning limousine, and then looking in the direction where Noah disappeared. He did not speak for a long time. Tokyo District 1, Saint Residence. In the corridor, Noah walked in the direction of the Son of Heaven's room with heavy steps. Behind Noah, a group of guards led by Jiren Baowei followed closely. As they followed, they could hear Jiren Baowei's angry shouts. Noah Doria! Stop right there. Unfortunately, Noah didn't care about the annoying cawing of the bodyguard, who sounded like an injured crow, as he continued to walk forward. Didn't I tell you that the Son of Heaven has already rested? Jiren Baowei's voice was getting more and more crazy. Noah Doria! Do you like to stay with the Son of Heaven so much? Noah still didn't pay attention to the bodyguard. He let the bodyguard yell behind him as he passed through a corridor. As long as he passed through another corridor, he would reach the Son of Heaven's room. Seeing that Noah was ignoring him, and recalling the last sniper incident, the Son of Heaven that he coveted was snuggled in his arms and repeatedly invited him into her room. The anger in Jiren Baowei's heart was beyond the scope of rational control. You're just a policeman. Jiren Baowei growled and pulled out his gun, suddenly pointing at Noah's back and yelling with a face full of resentment. Don't be too arrogant. Bang! The next moment, a muffled sound was heard. However, it was not the sound of Jiren Baowei's gun, but the sound of a fist suddenly smashing into his face and sending him flying. Bang! Then, a foot landed heavily on Jiren Baowei's chest as he was about to fly backward, kicking him to the ground. Jiren Baowei, who was in so much pain, only heard this sound. You came to me when I was in a bad mood. You asked for it. After that, a series of punches and kicks landed on Jiren Baowei's body without mercy. Ah! Jiren Baowei's screams echoed throughout the Saint residence. Chapter 138. As soon as the door was pushed open, a melodious tune drifted out of the room and into Noah's ears. Noah was slightly startled, then silently walked into the room and gently closed the door. He raised his eyes and looked at the corner of the room. As always, Elysium, dressed in a white wedding gown, sat in front of a piano like a holy maiden. Her eyes were closed, and a quiet smile hung on her beautiful face. Her 10 fingers, which were wearing lace gloves, slid lightly on the piano keys, playing a beautiful piano piece. Seeing this, Noah's face, which had been tense for the whole night, finally softened. He did not make a sound, directly leaning against the door, arms crossed, eyes closed, and quietly listened to the beautiful piano music in the room. His heart slowly calmed down. Elysium's performance, strictly speaking, was not considered good. At the very least, it was incomparable to those musicians who had painstakingly studied the piano field for a long time. However, from the point of view of the masses, Elysium's performance could be said to be beautiful, and in the eyes of professional musicians, there was no fault to be found. Perhaps it was because the performer herself was a peace-loving, extremely kind and holy girl. After the piano piece was played, the beautiful movement became impeccable under the holy and pure temperament of the beautiful girl playing it. It also became very easy to resonate with others. Noah was the same. From Elysium's performance, Noah could clearly feel Elysium's love for peace and the great desire to create an ideal world, which made his heart calm down. It was incredible. This performance lasted for who knows how long. Until a certain moment, the beautiful sound of the zither seemed to gradually dissipate into the echoes, disappearing into the air bit by bit, causing Noah, who was leaning against the door with his eyes closed to listen, to open his eyes. Immediately, in the room, the man and woman who were alone together cast their eyes on each other at the same time. The two pairs of eyes also tightly locked, and for a moment, they did not move away. As a result, in the vast luxurious boudoir, the warm and quiet atmosphere suddenly turned aesthetic, causing the temperature in the air to rise slightly, adding a lot of warmth. In this atmosphere where only the two of them were left in each other's eyes, Noah's face could not help but show a trace of awkwardness, and Elysium's face also showed a faint blush. After a while, they both returned to normal, breaking the slightly pink atmosphere. Standing up from the piano chair, Elysium walked in front of Noah, showing a gentle smile. This piece was composed by the same musician as the one you played here for the first time. I can hear it. Noah also chuckled. Compared to the first time you played in front of me, your piano skills have improved a lot. You're even better than me now. That's because you taught me well. Elysium's smile. Also, to be able to smoothly play a complete piece, I am already satisfied. Noah nodded empathetically. Like Elysium, he was satisfied to be able to smoothly play a complete piece after learning the piano, and did not specifically study it. Whether it was Noah or Elysium, both of them considered playing the piano as a hobby to pass time, but not a hobby. After all, both of them had things that they really wanted to do. After a little chat, Elysium's smile disappeared, and she looked straight at Noah. I saw the confrontation between you and President Chi Wu on the big screen in the headquarters. Really? Noah sighed, lowered the hands in front of him, and gently bowed to Elysium. Sorry, this time I acted on my own accord. I am very grateful that you allowed me to do as I pleased. Didn't you ask me to trust you? Elysium shook his head, but there was a hint of bitterness in his smile. Moreover, compared to me, you're more suitable to confront that ambitious president. If it weren't for you, I would have died in the previous ambush. During the meeting with President Chi Wu, we'll definitely have friction due to our different ideals. Who knows, we might even become enemies. So you are worried about this? Noah frowned slightly. I'll get straight to the point. You've seen what kind of person Chi Wu Zhongshuan is. He wants to eliminate you and even the rulers of the other regions to unify this country. You, on the other hand, want to show peace in this chaotic world. No matter what, you two will become enemies. I know, so I am very grateful to you. Elysium said in a sincere tone. After your suppression, that ambitious schemer should temporarily restrain himself, and because of your existence in the Tokyo area, he won't dare to act rashly in the Tokyo area, which has bought me a lot of time. You also said that it is temporary. Noah glanced at Elysium. In short, this time I acted on my own accord. Even if I didn't cause you trouble, it can't change the fact. I hope you can understand. President Noah, you have gone too far. Elysium seemed to be a little unaccustomed to Noah's apology. As you said, although you acted on your own accord, it is also a fact that you have helped me a lot. Here, I need to express my gratitude. After that, Elysium bowed slightly to Noah. For the ruler of a region, this was already the highest form of treatment and etiquette given to others. In this regard, Noah did not choose to be polite or refuse. After accepting Elysium's bow, he smiled as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. In that case, the task of the guard has come to an end. Yes. It was indeed over. The mastermind behind the assassination of Elysium, Chi Wu Zhongshuan, was already on his way back to Osaka. The sniper who wanted to assassinate Elysium had also been defeated by Noah. In addition, the guard's time limit had already passed during the meeting with Chi Wu Zhongshuan. Therefore, Noah's guard mission was considered complete. Yes, it's over. Elysium's eyes moved slightly as her beautiful eyes locked onto Noah's. The request from last time, is it still not allowed? Looking at Elysium's beautiful eyes, Noah fell silent. Elysium's request must be for Noah to come to her side and help her rule the entire Tokyo region. Using the word request, it was obvious how much Elysium valued Noah. Unfortunately, Noah still laughed at Elysium's request. You should know that no matter how many times you ask, I will not agree. That's why I'm really confused. Elysium smiled bitterly. Why can't you agree to my request? The reason? Noah muttered to Elysium. You really don't know the reason? Elysium lowered her head. Noah had said more than once that he could not find a reason to protect the Tokyo region, so he could not agree to Elysium's request. However, apart from this, there was another reason. The job of assisting Elysium seems to be Tentong Chrysanthemum's job, right? Noah said directly. Is it really okay for me to stay by your side with Tentong Chrysanthemum's prime minister? Elysium was silent for a long time before speaking in a low voice. I just want to try my best to recruit capable people. After all, I still have a lot of shortcomings, and I can only rely on capable people to make up for them. You're wrong. Noah suddenly interrupted Elysium. You have to find ways to make up for your shortcomings, but you can't blindly rely on others to make up for it. Elysium was stunned. Take Tentong Chrysanthemum's prime minister for example. He can indeed make up for many of your shortcomings, and indirectly improve the governance of the Tokyo region. However, this also led to the last time. Undoubtedly, you knew that the other party's actions had caused harm, but you could only choose to tolerate it. Noah looked directly at Elysium and said word by word. If you really want to represent peace and become a qualified ruler that represents peace, then it's time to choose independence, Your Highness. These words pierced deeply into Elysium's heart, leaving an indelible mark in her heart. Chapter 139. When the bright sunlight shone through the window and illuminated the entire room, Hina slowly opened her slightly heavy eyes. The ceiling that came into view was unfamiliar. Hina was stunned for a long time, and a confused look appeared on her face. Sitting up, Hina found that she was lying on a bed, surrounded by a room that she had never seen before. Tina surveyed her surroundings with a puzzled expression. This place is... She furrowed her brows tightly as she tried to recall the scene before she lost consciousness. Hina remembered that she was sent to the Yodo area by her master to assassinate the Holy Sun, but she was defeated by a very powerful person in the first sniper attack. Later, after contacting the higher-ups, Hina learned that the person who was more than 1 kilometer away from her, but showed a stronger sniper ability and strength than her, was the president of Fairy Tale, Noah Dole. Whether it was Fairy Tale or Noah Dole, for Hina, they were all very familiar names. After all, Noah and Fairy Tale were the famous shelter of the cursed child. Because of this, the existence of Noah and Fairy Tale had already spread throughout the world. The only difference was the size of their reputation. For all the cursed children who had heard of the existence of Noah and Fairy Tale, it was absolutely impossible for them not to pay attention to such an existence, and it was impossible for them not to have a good impression of such an existence. Hina was also one of the people who looked forward to Noah and Fairy Tale very much. After receiving the order to come to the Yodo area, Hina really wanted to meet Noah and see Fairy Tale. Unfortunately, before she had time to do this, Hina received the order that Noah was the person who defeated her in the sniper incident. At the same time, she also received the order to eliminate this obstacle. To be honest, Hina couldn't accept it. However, that was an order. For Tina, who was raised as a tool and could only rely on it to survive, if she disobeyed it, she would lose the meaning of living. Thus, Tina had no choice but to compromise. In the end, Tina was defeated once again. Moreover, Tina also discovered that the guild leader of Fairy Tale, whom she had always yearned for, was the first person in her life who was gentle to her, the first person who completely accepted her, and the first person who took care of her with incomparable care. After that, the series of battles with Noah also surfaced in Tina's mind. And at the end of this memory, it stopped at the scene where Noah pointed a gun at himself and pulled the trigger. Tina's memory stopped at this place before disappearing. This meant that after Noah pulled the trigger, Tina was already in this room when she opened her eyes. Is this heaven? Tina muttered to herself before a wave of drowsiness washed over her. Disregarding her identity as the next mechanized soldier, Tina was still an owl-type initiator. Under the influence of the owl-type factor in her body, not only could Tina enter her best state at night like an owl, but she also had enhanced vision and hearing. Therefore, Tina had always been active at night when she was most suitable for herself, resulting in her mental state not being very good during the day. Now, even if she had sufficient rest, she was still a little sleepy. Gotcha! At this moment, the sound of the door opening echoed, causing Tina to tremble and quickly look in the direction of the door. The person who walked into the room was a little girl about the same age as Tina. Moreover, it was a little girl that Tina was quite familiar with. At this moment, Tina was stunned and spoke in surprise. Xiaoshi? You're awake? Xiaoshi, who walked into the room, raised his head and looked at Tina. He found that she was awake, but her face was expressionless as he nodded calmly. Do you feel any discomfort? No. Tina answered subconsciously, but she immediately reacted. Her gaze focused and the stern gaze that usually only appeared at night appeared in Tina's eyes. She then turned to look at Xiaoshi. Where is this place? Here. Xiaoshi said calmly. This is fairy tale. Fairy tale? Tina's little face was filled with confusion. Why am I in fairy tale? Hearing this, Xiaoshi reminded her. Do you remember what happened before you lost consciousness? Tina couldn't help but recall the battle at night, and her expression became even more confused. I remember that I was defeated by my brother, and I even begged my brother to kill me, and then my brother pulled the trigger on me as I wished. That's right. Xiaoshi suddenly spoke, interrupting Tina's memories. You have already been killed by the president once. Killed once? Tina almost couldn't understand the meaning of this sentence, causing her to ask. What do you mean? What I mean is, the previous Tina Sprinter is already dead. Xiaoshi answered matter-of-factly. The current you is only the president's captive. Captive? Seeing that Tina was about to reveal a confused expression again, Xiaoshi directly grabbed Tina's hand and brought her down from the bed. Follow me. After saying this, Xiaoshi pulled Tina, who was still in a daze, out of the room. In the moderately sized living room, Noah sat on the sofa. It was rare that he wasn't dealing with official business, but he held the remote control and madly pressed on the TV in front of him, looking for a program that he liked. Not long after, the sound of two people's footsteps came from the corridor, causing Noah to stop what he was doing and look in the direction of the corridor. There, Xiaoshi held Tina's hand and walked in front of Noah. Xiaoshi let go of Tina's hand and silently retreated to the side. Brother. Tina glanced at Noah and found that Noah was also looking at her. She lowered her head with a depressed expression as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. At this point, if Tina still didn't know what was going on, then all the shady missions she carried out would have been for nothing, and she would have gotten to the 98th position in the IP rankings for nothing. In this situation, other than Noah sparing her life, was there any other possibility? She wanted to kill Noah. But Noah didn't kill her. Instead, he spared her and even brought her back to fairy tale. All these facts caused Tina's emotions to fluctuate for a long time, and she was still unable to say a word. If you don't know what to say, then don't say anything. Noah seemed to see through Tina's heart as he reached out and patted Tina's head. I just want to ask you, do you want to stay in fairy tale? Stay in fairy tale? Unsurprisingly, Tina's face showed signs of wavering. As long as one heard of the existence of fairy tale, and was a cursed child, then there was no one who didn't want to stay in fairy tale. After all, fairy tale was the only shelter that could accommodate a cursed child. But, could she really stay in fairy tale? My body is the product of the country's technology. Tina's face was full of disappointment. Master won't let me stay here. However, Tina's disappointment was heavily dispersed by Noah's words. That's something I need to consider. Noah rubbed Tina's head fiercely. You children only need to think about how to live happily. Feeling the warmth from the big hand on her head, Tina was immersed in it for a long time. Chapter 140. 98th place in the IP ranking. When Noah introduced Hina to Mugino and Rintaro, who happened to visit the house, Mugino and Rintaro looked at Hina in shock. Looking at Hina, who was standing beside Noah with a dazed expression and a silly smile on her face, Mugino and Rintaro looked at each other with a doubtful expression. Is this for real? Mugino walked half a circle around Hina. When he saw that Hina had lowered her head and was dozing off, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. To be honest, I know Noah isn't the kind of person who would lie, but I really can't believe that this child is a monster in the top 100 IP ranking. Mechanical soldiers? Rintaro paid attention to Hina's other identity. He seemed to be very interested in the mechanical soldiers. Cursed child, and mechanical soldiers. If this is true, then it's not strange for her to be in the top 100 IP ranking. Originally, the abilities of the cursed child were far beyond the scope of humans. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called the last hope of humanity. As for the mechanized soldiers, they were specially researched to be used in battle against the protozoa, whose strength far exceeded that of humans. Even some of the stronger cursed children could be compared to them. Now, both of these factors were concentrated in one person. Therefore, it was easy to imagine how strong this person was. Being able to be in the top 100 IP ranking was not an exaggeration at all. Only Noah knew that even if Mugino and Rintaro believed that Hina was in the top 100 IP ranking, they still underestimated Hina's ability. As everyone knew, the IP ranking was a ranking created by the International Initiator Monitoring Organization, ISO, after calculating the battle record and strength of each police team. In other words, the IP ranking of a police team was based on the battle record of the police team, as well as the combat ability of the initiator and the promoter. Therefore, the International Initiator Monitoring Organization, ISO, released a ranking for each police team with IP as a prefix. Initiator and promoter, when the first letters of the two were combined, it was IP. Because of this, once a police team disbanded, no matter who it was, as long as they formed a new team, the IP ranking would restart and start again. It was also because of this that Noah, who did not have an initiator, had not been promoted by the International Initiator Monitoring Organization, ISO. Hina was different. Hina had her own partner. That was Ayn Rand. However, as Hina's police partner, Ayn Rand only played the role of a commander. She didn't have any combat ability at all. Other than having a brain that was much stronger than the average person, she was completely an ordinary person. Therefore, Hina's IP ranking was completely based on her own combat ability. If Hina had an outstanding promoter, then the IP ranking would definitely be more than 98. This, Noah could guarantee. Unfortunately, the news of me joining Fairy Tale will soon spread to my master, my partner. At that time, we will definitely disband and the IP ranking will also restart. Because the assassination of the Holy Son of Heaven was not something that could be casually exposed, Hina could only explain it this way. Therefore, this IP ranking won't be maintained for long. You'll only lose your ranking, not your combat ability. Noah patted Hina's little head. As long as Hina finds a new partner, with your combat ability, you'll quickly rush into the top 100 again. Hearing this, before Hina had time to react, Muging's eyes lit up and suddenly smiled in front of Hina. Hey, Hina-chan, why don't you come to our Tendo Civilian Police Company? Noah and Rintaro were both stunned. Didn't I tell you that Hina has already joined Fairy Tale? Noah was speechless. Are you trying to poach me? Muging-san. Rentaro's face was full of awkwardness. No matter what, isn't this a little too obvious? What does it matter? Muging glanced at Noah, snorted, and turned her head away. In any case, President Noah will definitely respect other people's choices, right? As soon as she said this, not to mention Noah, even the slow-witted Rintaro could sense the hostility in her words. What's wrong with Muging-san? Rintaro couldn't help but mutter. Recently, she's been getting angry for no reason. What's going on? While Rintaro was still muttering, Noah realized that Muging's tone was so angry because he was there. Needless to say, Muging must still be thinking about what happened last time. He thought about the last time Noah went to the Tendo Civilian Police Company, and the incident of the lucky pervert. With this in mind, Noah couldn't help but want to tease Mugging. He squatted down, patted Hina's little head, and asked with a smile. Hina, do you want to leave Fairy Tale and leave Big Brother's side? Leave Big Brother's side? Hina, who was in a daze, was startled at first, then she shook her head without hesitation. No. Tina-chan? Mugen's mouth twitched, and she looked at Hina with a fake smile. There's nothing good about that kind of guy. Our Tendo Civilian Police Company is a good choice. What's the specifics? Noah looked at Mugging with a half-smile and dealt a fatal blow. Could it be that the Tendo Civilian Police Company is treating you better than Fairy Tale? Mugen's smile, which was already very forced, immediately froze. Could it be that the Tendo Civilian Police Company is more famous than Fairy Tale? The muscles on Mugen's face kept twitching. Could it be that the Tendo Civilian Police Company is doing better than Fairy Tale? The word well was printed on Mugen's smooth forehead with a bam sound. Or, does the Tendo Civilian Police Company provide free food and accommodation for the employees, and can also pay for the employees' tuition fees? Noah shrugged. President of Tendo, is the treatment in your company at least at this level? Ha. Mugging had an extremely fake smile on his face. These things will happen sooner or later, is that so? Noah suddenly realized, and then patted Hina's head. Then Hina, do you want to go to the Tendo Civilian Police Company? No. Hina shook her head vigorously. I want to stay by Big Brother's side, no matter how good the treatment is. Mugging was instantly petrified. Sigh. Ren Teru covered his face as he could not bear to watch. Ms. Mugging, can't you see that Hina just wants to follow Noah? Well, President of Tendo, it's not that you don't have charisma, it's just that you found the wrong person to poach. Noah was amused. So, please don't be discouraged, your goal is to improve the treatment of the Tendo Civilian Police Company, and work hard. You. Mugging was so angry that his whole body trembled, and he ran out with tears in his eyes. Remember this. Ms. Mugging. Ren Teru was shocked, and just as he was about to chase after him, Noah sighed beside him. Hina. Noah lowered his head and said to Hina, who had been dozing off. You go and rest first. Okay, Hina replied in a soft voice, and then wobbled toward the direction of the room. Noah then walked toward Mugging. You can't even take a joke like this, and you call yourself a lady. Ren Teru stared blankly at Noah, who was walking out, and then he quickly chased after him. Chapter 141. What the hell? What the hell? What the hell? On the busy street, Mugina seemed to have done it on purpose. She stomped on the ground with heavy steps and walked forward aggressively, making the people around her unconsciously take a few steps away from her. She kept nagging at the same time. So what if you're rich? I'll make a lot of money sooner or later too. From a bystander's perspective, Mugen's behavior was like she was trying to curry favor with a rich young master somewhere, and then she was deceived by that rich young master, causing her to go for wool and come home shorn. Therefore, the passers-by who heard Mugen's nagging couldn't help but look at her with pity. Some even sized her up a few times, and then sighed and shook their heads. It was as if they were pitying a young girl who had been ruined by someone. Fortunately, Mugging, who was extremely angry, didn't notice the expressions of the passers-by around her. Otherwise, with the anger in her chest now, even if she was a rich young lady, she wouldn't be able to hold it in and directly flip out, right? Rumble. Mugging, who was walking forward with a face full of anger, suddenly heard a strange sound, causing Mugen's delicate body to stiffen. Her beautiful face, which was originally full of anger, also froze there, and then turned into decadence. Clutching her stomach, Mugging seemed to be in a daze and muttered this. I really want to eat steak. If those who knew Mugging but only understood her at the level of a rich young lady heard this, they would definitely be scared half to death. Only those who truly understood Mugging knew how difficult it was to realize Muging's desire. Under the continuous protest of her stomach, Mugging couldn't help but take out her wallet from her pocket and open it. However, the situation in the wallet that entered her eyes made even Mugging, who was its owner, involuntarily want to cover her eyes, not wanting to continue looking. Rumble, a sound louder than before once again came from Muging's stomach, reminding her that it was time to eat. Woo-woo. Mugging cried out sorrowfully. I almost forgot, I went to that guy's house to freeload. If I had known, I would have run out after eating. This sentence just happened to be heard by a figure who came behind Mugging and was about to stop her. At that moment, a rather speechless and helpless voice sounded from behind Mugging. Should I say, as expected of an idea that only you have? Wah. Mugung jumped in fright and hurriedly jumped a distance away. When he turned around and saw the face and expression of the person standing behind him rolling his eyes, he was instantly furious. What? Just now, you didn't anger me enough. Now, you've caught up with me and want to continue to anger me? Only you have bad taste. Noah sighed and shook his head as if he was telling a fact. Why don't you say that a person who wants to freeload at someone else's house and deliberately finds fault with the person who freeloads, only to be angered and leave and regret it in the end is even weirder, right? Mugging choked. She wanted to refute, but she really couldn't find the words to refute. She could only glare at Noah, as if she could kill Noah with her gaze. She glared fiercely. Looking at Muging's behavior that resembled a little brat throwing a tantrum, Noah was both amused and annoyed. After looking around, he fixed his gaze on a stall selling bean paste buns and walked over. Under Muging's puzzled gaze, Noah bought 2 bean paste buns and then walked back. Rumble. When Noah approached Mugging with 2 hot bean paste buns and was 3 meters away from her, Muging's stomach immediately protested, causing her to widen her eyes slightly. She stared straight at the bean paste buns in Noah's hand and stared blankly. Then, Mugging moved. With a big stride, he closed the distance of 2 to 3 meters between him and Noah. Then, with a speed that even Noah almost couldn't see clearly, Mugging snatched a bean paste bun from Noah's hand. Mugging turned around and wolfed down the bun. Then, he wolfed it down. Noah, who was holding the other bean paste bun, had already stopped in her tracks. She opened her mouth slightly and froze there. After a while, Mugging, who was empty-handed, turned her head with a red face and looked at Noah with tears in her eyes as if she had been greatly insulted. She gritted her teeth and said, "Don't say anything." Noah looked at Mugging with sympathy and pity, as if he was looking at a stray cat by the roadside. "Do you have a problem with that?" As if seeing through Noah's thoughts, Mugging spoke incoherently with tears in his eyes. "Anyway, I'm just a stray dog that can only beg for food from others. I'm thinking of a cat, not a dog. That's too pitiful." Noah laughed bitterly. "Has your life become so difficult?" Mugging bit her lips, lowered her head, took out the wallet that she had just opened, and handed it to Noah. Noah glanced at the wallet in Mugging's hand, but the next second, he couldn't bear to look at it and looked away, covering his forehead. "I heard that you went to the same aristocratic school as the princess in Tokyo, right? Why are you still in such dire straits?" "Going to the same aristocratic school as the Holy Son of Heaven is my last pride as a member of the Tentong family," Mugging retorted. "I won't back down on this no matter what." "But don't you hate it when people call you Tentong?" Noah was confused. Maintaining the self-esteem of something you hate? What kind of self-esteem is that? How others see me is another matter. Mugging was a little impatient. "I hate Tentong, or even hate them, but I don't hate and hate my parents who gave me this surname and life." Hearing this sentence, Noah changed his opinion of Mugging. "I thought there was only hatred left in your heart." Noah muttered this sentence in a voice that Mugging couldn't hear, then hesitated and asked, "I also heard that you have a kidney problem. Since you don't hate the life your parents gave you, why don't you accept a kidney transplant?" The expression on Mugging's face gradually disappeared. As if her whole body had lost its strength, Mugang's delicate body slowly entered a state of relaxation. She raised her head, looked at the sky, and reached out her hand, making a gesture of grabbing something. Because I've already decided to use this life to kill all the heaven children. Therefore, I must use this illness to remind myself not to forget revenge. At this moment, all the human feelings on Mugging seemed to have disappeared. She was like a puppet, making people feel cold all over. You're just comforting yourself by doing this, but it has no effect on your so-called revenge. Noah frowned tightly. Because of this problem, you can't move for a long time at all, and you can't even fight for a long time. You also need to undergo hemodialysis all the time, wasting a lot of time. In this way, if a great opportunity for revenge suddenly appears in front of you, but you need to undergo hemodialysis, or you can't move because of your kidney problem and miss this opportunity, what will you do? Mugging, who was originally disapproving of Noah's words and wanted to change the topic, was stunned. For the first time in her life, she was shaken by her practice of remembering revenge. Noah, who clearly saw Mugang's hesitation, showed an imperceptible smile, but didn't continue to say anything. Instead, he deliberately changed the topic. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Let's hurry back, Rentaro should catch up with us. With that, Noah was about to walk back, but Mugging abruptly grabbed his sleeve and lowered her head. Just when Noah thought Mugging wanted to say something about revenge, Mugging's voice, which was softer than a mosquito's, entered his ears. Can you give me the other bean paste bun? The corner of Noah's mouth twitched. He glanced at the bean paste bun in his hand, then looked at the embarrassed Mugging, and was speechless. Poor and destitute, but not losing her temper. She was blinded by hatred. In the end, which one was the real Tentong Mugging? Chapter 142. President, it's time to wake up, big brother, please wake up. Noah heard this voice while he was still asleep. It was a voice that Noah was very familiar with. Thus, Noah slowly woke up from his sleep. However, in the process of waking up, Noah still heard such a conversation. Looks like it won't be that easy to wake up. How is that possible? Isn't Big Brother's senses very sharp? Even if he was asleep, he should have sensed our presence and woken up, right? Maybe it's because the president is very familiar with our presence, and we don't have any hostility or malice, so the president didn't wake up? Then what should we do? At this time, we can only use the knowledge we read in books. The knowledge we read in books? Yes, it's written in books that if you want to wake up the opposite sex, you have to give them a morning kiss. Kiss. In your words, it means kiss, do you understand? Kiss, kiss Big Brother, then, let me wake the president up. Wait. Wait. Please give this task to me. As this conversation entered Noah's ears, two extremely slender and hot bodies pressed against Noah's body. Noah could clearly feel the sweet breath of the two people talking, and the presence of the two people was getting closer and closer. Noah, who sensed that something was wrong, immediately shivered, and all of his consciousness was instantly awakened. He opened his eyes and sat up abruptly. Immediately after, the two little girls who were pressed against Noah, or more accurately, sitting on Noah's body, were immediately sent flying by Noah, who sat up. Their bodies bounced twice on the soft bed before stopping. Noah, who finally saw clearly who the newcomer was, had a bitter expression as he questioned. Xiaoshi, Tina, why is it you two again? Facing Noah's questioning, Xiaoshi and Tina looked like they were completely used to it. At the same time, they tilted their heads and gave irrelevant answers. Good morning. President, Big Brother. Seeing the two very cute little girls tilting their heads at the same time, one with a cold and innocent face, the other with a smile that was more heartwarming than the breeze, and both of them were lying on his bed, leaning forward, looking like they were at his mercy, Noah's heart couldn't help but beat faster. President. Almost at the same time that Noah's heart beat faster, the high IQ girl with an IQ of 210 pointed at Noah's face with curiosity. You're blushing. No. No. It was rare for Noah to panic, and he even stuttered for a while. After he reacted, he quickly clenched his fists, pretended to cough, and put on a straight face. You too, how many times have I told you not to barge into my house? You have your own home, so why do you keep barging into mine? Hearing this, Xiaoshi and Tina looked at each other, then turned their heads and said in unison. Come and wake the president, big brother, up. Noah suddenly felt like all the strength in his body was gone. His shoulders drooped, and he looked sad. This is definitely a perfunctory answer. Definitely, President, please have some tea. Big brother, please use a towel. In the cold hall, as soon as Noah sat on the sofa, Xiaoshi and Tina brought tea and a towel. They came from both sides of Noah at the same time, and handed the things in their hands to Noah. At this time, whether it was Xiaoshi who didn't like to smile, or Tina who was usually in a daze, they both put on a docile and obedient look like newlyweds serving their husband. This made Noah a little amused, and he couldn't help but chuckle. And these two chuckles also caused the two little girls to be dissatisfied. President, please have some tea. Big brother, please use a towel. It was the same sentence, but Xiaoshi and Tina's behavior was completely different from before. If Xiaoshi and Tina were like docile and obedient newlyweds just now, then, they were like arguing with their husband, wanting to have a cold war, and at the same time wanting to get closer to him, trying to get their husband to apologize first, and being ready to forgive him at any time. Noah more or less couldn't help but laugh, but he could only suppress the laughter in his heart. He hung the towel in Tina's hand around his neck, wiped his face, and took the tea from Xiaoshi's hand, and took a sip. Thanks. No matter what, Xiaoshi and Tina were still children, and their dissatisfaction from before was immediately forgotten. With a satisfied face, they sat down on either side of Noah. Xiaoshi had already turned on the TV, picked up the remote control, and looked for programs that interested her. Tina swung her two little legs and yawned cutely, but her face didn't have the usual sleep-deprived look, which made Noah feel strange. I feel like Tina is a lot more energetic than usual. Is it just my imagination? No, big brother. Tina showed a gentle smile. She did look a lot more energetic than usual. A few days ago, I used to take sleeping pills at night to make myself fall asleep, but now I'm more or less used to it, and can move around during the day. Move around during the day? Noah couldn't help but ask. Is that okay? Tina was an owl-type initiator, and she was very good at moving around at night. It wasn't that Tina couldn't move during the day, but it was very advantageous for her to move during the night. At night, a normal person's vision would be affected to some extent, and because of the ample activity during the day, during this kind of resting time, their body and mind would be tired, and they wouldn't be in their best condition. But Tina, whose vision and hearing had been strengthened, not only did she not have to worry about her vision, but because of her owl-type trait, she was in her best condition at night. Under this kind of situation, if Tina fought with others, it would definitely be advantageous. But if Tina adjusted her time to move around during the day, then this advantage would be completely wiped out. That was why Noah asked such a question. It's okay. Tina shook her head, although her movement wasn't very big, her tone was very firm. I also want to live with Big Brother and everyone. Needless to say, Noah, Xiaoshi, and the others all moved around during the day and rested at night. If Tina wanted to live with Noah, Xiaoshi, and the others, she would have to adjust her schedule, otherwise, it would be very difficult for her to interact with them. Tina didn't want to waste the life that she worked so hard to get, which was much better than before. Just because of this, Tina wouldn't change her mind. Is that so? Noah could naturally understand Tina's thoughts, and of course, he wouldn't object. He patted Tina's little head, and when Tina revealed a comfortable expression, he smiled slightly. I also want to live with you guys. A satisfied smile appeared on Tina's face. President. At this time, Xiaoshi suddenly tugged at Noah's clothes. Just as Noah looked at Xiaoshi, Xiaoshi reached out his hand and pointed in the direction of the television, attracting Noah and Tina's attention. On the television, the news was being broadcast. Last night, at 11:43 Tokyo time, a return flight from Osaka to the United States was attacked by a protozoan with the ability to fly, and unfortunately crashed. Following this report, photos of the wreckage of the plane and the people involved in the crash were also listed and arranged on the television. When she saw the top photo of the crash victims, Tina's eyes suddenly widened, and she stood up from the sofa in disbelief. Then, the mechanical and emotionless report sounded again from the television. According to the latest news, the plane belonged to a famous American scientist who visited the Osaka area not long ago. It was a medical expert, Professor Ayn Rand. After the incident, Professor Ayn Rand was also confirmed as a victim of the plane crash, and she has passed away. An extremely oppressive atmosphere suddenly filled the entire hall. Xia Shi, who knew what the name Ayn Rand represented, couldn't help but look at the shocked Tina. Noah narrowed his eyes, and a bright light flashed through his eyes, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. Chapter 143. On TV, there were several reports about Ayn Rand's death due to a plane crash. That was to be expected. Aside from what kind of person Ayn Rand was, he was also a renowned scientist and medical expert who, along with 3 other people who had the ability to modify mechanized soldiers, were known as the most powerful minds. Such a person with extraordinary knowledge and technology could almost be said to be the treasure of a country. The loss of one was definitely a misfortune for the world. Not to mention, she died in an accident. Regarding this, the country that Ayn Rand belonged to also seemed to be extremely distressed and said that they would thoroughly investigate this matter. The ruler of the Osaka area that Ayn Rand visited before her death, Kiwamune-kun, also expressed in tears in an interview that he hated himself for not keeping Professor Ayn Rand for one more night. That way, he wouldn't have been attacked by the primitive animals. Unfortunately, no one would know that this person who expressed regret in an interview was the culprit behind Ayn Rand's death. No, Kiwamune-kun wasn't the culprit. After all, Kiwamune-kun was also threatened by Noah that he planned to invite Ayn Rand to the Osaka area to visit. Then, when Ayn Rand was on her way back, he planned to lure the primitive animals with the ability to fly to attack her. All in all, no matter what the inside story of this incident was, no matter how many people lamented it, and no matter how many people wanted to investigate this incident, none of it could affect Noah, Xia Shi, and Tina who were watching this report in front of the TV. Noah, Xia Shi, and Tina had different reactions to this incident. Professor. Tina's small and pretty face was full of complex emotions. She couldn't express how she felt about the fact that the culprit who had put her on the operating table and forced her to live a dark life had died just like that. Tina wasn't someone who liked to hate others. Even though Tina knew that she had been on the brink of death countless times because of Ayn Rand, she had never truly hated Ayn Rand. Of course, not hating Ayn Rand was one thing, but it was completely impossible for Tina to like Ayn Rand. Therefore, when Ayn Rand died because of a plane crash, Tina's feelings were very complicated. Happy? Tina, who didn't hate Ayn Rand, obviously didn't feel happy. Sad? She had been used as a lab rat by Ayn Rand, and then used as a tool to her heart's content. If Tina was saddened by Ayn Rand's death, then she would be even more merciful than the Holy Sun. Thus, the only emotion that Tina was able to discern was that her entire body felt relaxed in that instant. Tina was a mechanical soldier modified by Ayn Rand. To put it bluntly, she was an experimental lab rat. To put it nicely, she was the crystallization of the country's technology. After all, no matter what, Tina's body was the result of meticulous modification by one of the world's most powerful scientists. For a country, this was the most advanced technology. Coupled with Tina's betrayal, there was no way Ayn Rand would allow Tina to continue staying in fairy tale and allow her proud work to be controlled by someone else. Therefore, Ayn Rand would definitely send out troops to hunt Tina down. Even if the entire Tokyo area was thrown into chaos, she would do everything in her power to kill Tina. Now that Ayn Rand was dead, Tina was free from the fate of being hunted down. As such, how could Tina not feel relieved? Noah, who clearly saw Tina's complicated emotions at first, then she breathed a sigh of relief. He couldn't help but smile and continue to stroke Tina's little head. In this way, you can be considered to have completely gotten rid of the past. Tina clenched her hand and looked at Noah's familiar smile. The expression on her face finally seemed to melt. She revealed a soul-stirring smile and nodded heavily. N. Beside them, Xiaoshi, who had been silently watching Noah and Tina, had an extremely faint smile on his face that disappeared in the blink of an eye. In such a warm atmosphere, Noah, Xiaoshi, and Tina didn't notice the news that followed the news of Ayn Rand's death in a plane crash. It was the news that the Holy Sun in the Tokyo area disbanded his own holy residence guards for reasons such as incompetence and slacking. The guards led by Takahito were fired or demoted. Tokyo Area 1, Holy Residence, Lord Holy Sun. Lord Holy Sun. The Holy Sun, who was discussing official matters with the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime in the conference hall, suddenly heard anxious noises coming from outside the hall. Almost at the same time, the Holy Sun and the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime both frowned and turned to look in the direction of the noises. Over there, a group of guards led by Baowei Zhuoran were trying their best to separate the guards while hysterically rushing over. The noise became more and more ear-piercing, making the Holy Son of Heaven and Chrysanthemum Prime ministers frown deeper and deeper. Before the Holy Sun could say anything, the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime said coldly, "Let them in." Only then did the guards stop blocking Takahito and the others and let Takahito rush in front of the Holy Sun and the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime. "Lord Holy Sun. Why are you disbanding the guards? Why are you dismissing us?" Disbanding the guards? The Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime paused and looked at the Holy Sun. Clearly, the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime had never heard of this matter. The Holy Sun slowly relaxed his tightly furrowed brows and calmly looked at Takahito. "Since you've already received the notice to disband the guards, then the reason should be given to you as well, right? What kind of reason is that?" Takahito seemed to have lost his rationality and didn't show any respect for the Holy Sun as he threw the dismissal document in his hand on the ground. "Incompetent? How am I incompetent? Captain Takahito." The Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime glared at Takahito. "Please watch your tone." "But, Lord Celestial Prime, I really don't understand." Takahito couldn't hide the anxiety in his voice. "Why were we dismissed for no reason? Captain Takahito, didn't the previous sniping incident show you your inadequacies?" The Holy Sun was still calm. "As guards, your experience is obviously insufficient. You can't guarantee my safety when I need it. So, I hope you can stop messing around." The previous sniping incident? Zhuo Wei was stunned for a moment, and then he seemed to understand something. He opened his eyes wide, waved his hands, and shouted loudly. "I understand now. I understand now. It must be Noah Doria. It must be Noah Doria. Noah Doria?" The Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime narrowed his eyes and looked deeply at Takahito. "What's going on?" "Lord Holy Sun, Noah Doria must have said something to you. That's why you're dismissing us, right?" Takahito ignored the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime and approached the Holy Sun step by step like a madman. "You can't believe what he says. He's the shelter of the cursed child." The Holy Son of Heaven frowned when he saw the bodyguard closing in on him. He raised his hand and a group of guards immediately rushed out and grabbed the bodyguard. "What are you doing?" Takahito struggled. "Let me go." The Holy Son of Heaven didn't want to say anything more. He waved his hand, and the guards pushed Zhuo Ren and the others out of the room. The scene returned to its original calm. The Holy Sun then spoke to the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime. "Mr. Chrysanthemum Prime, let's continue." The celestial child, Chrysanthemum Prime, nodded. He glanced at the Holy Sun, who didn't intend to explain anything to him. He then glanced in the direction where the bodyguard left. His eyes gradually sharpened. The Holy Sun didn't discuss this matter with the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime in advance. And this was something that had never happened before. Chapter 144. The cool morning air spread with the breeze, making the dewdrops seem to be frozen. They hung on the leaves and didn't fall for a long time. In fairy tale, Noah and Rentaro stood side by side in an open-air training ground. They held their guns in their hands and aimed in front of them, concentrating. Clank. At a certain moment, the sound of a bouncing object could be heard from the left and right in front of Noah and Rentaro. Immediately after, 2 light frisbees shot out from the left and right at the same time and flew to the center of the training ground. Without the slightest hesitation, Noah and Rentaro pulled the triggers of their guns at the same time. Bang! Accompanied by the sound of gunfire, 2 bullets pierced through the air and shot out, landing on the 2 frisbees at the same time. Bang! The 2 frisbees that had just flown to the center of the training ground immediately exploded. They were directly penetrated by the bullets and turned into a pile of fragments, falling to the ground like porcelain plates. Clank, 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 clank. Unfortunately, Noah and Rentaro, who had successfully hit the moving targets, did not have the time to rejoice. In the next second, the sound of bouncing objects could be heard continuously. One by one, the frisbees that had turned into afterimages also shot out, drawing beautiful arcs in the air as they flew to the center of the training ground. In an instant, the entire sky was filled with frisbees flying toward them. The dazzling sunlight from the distant horizon shone on the frisbees, making them look exceptionally dazzling. Under such circumstances, trying to shoot through the dazzling light and hit the frisbees was as difficult as trying to thread a needle with one's eyes closed. However, even so, Noah and Rentaro did not hesitate at all. They stood still and pulled the triggers of their guns. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, 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 bang. The loud gunshots and the sound of the frisbees exploding reverberated throughout the entire training ground, creating a cacophony of noise. If one were to listen carefully, one would discover that the gunshots from Noah and Ryotaro almost overlapped with each other. In other words, Noah and Rentaro both fired at the same time. At the same time, both Noah and Rentaro did not miss the target even once. In other words, not only did the 2 of them shoot at the same time, but the time they took to hit the frisbee and the number of frisbees they pierced were also the same. Their chemistry was terrifying. The only difference was that Noah and Rentaro took different amounts of time to reload. Noah's modified revolver only had 6 bullets. Therefore, every time he fired 6 bullets, Noah would slap his waist and throw a new round of ammunition into the air. In less than a second, he would flick his hand and flick the shell in his gun's magazine. Using his amazing technique, he would accurately load the bullets that fell from the air into the magazine's magazine before continuing to shoot. On the other hand, Rentaro's XD series pistol had more than 10 bullets in it. However, with Noah's amazing reloading technique, Rentaro was unable to beat Noah to the draw. The timing of their shots was always the same. Every time Rentaro ran out of bullets, he would need to reload as well. Logically speaking, without Noah's amazing reloading technique, Rentaro should be falling behind Noah more and more. However, that was not the case. Unlike Noah, Rentaro, who used the XD series pistol, only needed to take out the magazine and reload it with a new one. As long as one was specially trained, the time required for this process could be shortened to less than a second. Therefore, Noah and Rentaro both maintained the same timing, number of hits, and accuracy. When there was only 1 frisbee left in the middle of the training ground. For some reason, Noah suddenly stopped what he was doing, causing the time he took to pull the trigger was slower than before. This is my chance. Rentaro's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise as he quickly pulled the trigger. Bang! In the midst of the gunshot, the bullet flew across the sky and accurately pierced through the center of the frisbee in the middle of the training ground. Ryotaro didn't notice that at the same time he was pleasantly surprised. Noah had a triumphant smile on his face as he pulled the trigger. Bang! Amidst the smoke, the bullet fired from the modified revolver didn't land on the frisbee. Instead, it caught up with Ryotaro's bullet and slammed into it. Clang! In the midst of the crisp sound, the 2 bullets collided with each other and changed their paths at the same time, rebounding in different directions. As a result, Rentaro's bullet that should have pierced through the frisbee was completely ineffective. Rintaro was completely dumbfounded. Bang! At this time, another gunshot was heard. The bullet pierced through the air and pierced through the frisbee in the middle of the training ground. Bang! The frisbee shattered, and the fragments fell to the ground, announcing the end of the shooting competition. Rintaro stared at the fragments of the frisbee on the ground speechlessly, then he silently looked at Noah, who was holding the gun with smoke coming out of the muzzle. He was speechless for a long time. To put it simply, he had a sullen expression on his face. Isn't that too despicable? Hearing Rintaro's sullen protest, Noah nonchalantly played with the gun and said, "This is also a shooting technique. I followed your instructions and only used shooting. How is that despicable?" "That's true." Rintaro was still unconvinced. He put his hands on his waist and covered his forehead with a helpless expression. "But can't you let an ordinary person like me win?" President Noah. Really? Noah had an innocent expression. "But I'm also an ordinary person." Rintaro's mouth twitched. Ordinary person? Killing the world-destroying protozoan named Scorpio, and easily defeating the 98th ranked IP, would the person who took it under his command be an ordinary person? Who would believe it if he said it out loud? Noah didn't realize that he had said something unbelievable. He gestured to the side with his mouth and signaled Rintaro to look over. "Besides, in terms of shooting ability alone, that person over there is the one with the true godly skill." Rintaro couldn't help but look over at the same spot as Noah. Bang! 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 On another field, Tina, who was lying prone on the ground, raised her sniper rifle and pulled the trigger again and again, shooting through one small target after another that was the size of a palm. Moreover, every shot hit the red heart on the target that was the size of a fingernail. Seeing this, Rintaro couldn't help but look at the field where Hina was shooting. There, 3 spherical objects were flying aimlessly in the air. Like cameras, they scanned the field, pacing back and forth as if they were patrolling. Rintaro clicked his tongue. "That's Sandfeld, right?" Sandfeld. It was a thinking interface. To put it more simply, it was a long-distance detection device. There was an extremely sophisticated observation device inside. It could wirelessly transmit the target's coordinates, temperature, humidity, angle, wind speed, and other information back to the controller's brain. It was because of Sandfeld that Hina could become a super sniper who could hit 100% of her targets even from a distance of 1 kilometer. Ayn Rand had implanted the neuron chip that controlled Sandfeld in Hina's brain. She had also implanted a metal balancer in Hina's body. This solved the problem of the arm shaking caused by the heartbeat and breathing of the sniper, making Hina a godly sniper who could hit 100% of her targets. In addition, the owl factor in Tina's body strengthened her vision, hearing, and other aspects. This allowed Tina to become a super strong sniper who was born for sniping. In one fell swoop, she shot up to the monster level of the 98th place in the IP ranking, achieving great fame. "No matter how many times I see it, it's amazing," Rintaro said with sincere admiration. Even though Hina's sniping ability had only been strengthened to the extreme, Rintaro believed that even if he had Yen Ju's help, he would have no chance of winning. Of course, that was under normal circumstances. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.